Chapter 349. The sound of the bell once again reverberated throughout Shumi Mountain, announcing the beginning of a new day. The rising sun, from the eastern horizon, shone the first rays of sunlight into the world. In the early morning, there were already many people walking up the stairs to the majestic temple. Most of them held incense and candles in their hands, their faces full of piety. Some of them even brought their children along to worship. The children were innocent, and did not feel tired on the mountain road. Many of them were running back and forth in high spirit. The morning fog was about to disperse, lingering outside the Tian'in temple, and the air felt a little moist. The monks who woke up early had already finished the necessary morning lessons of the day. At this moment, they were all cleaning the courtyard, gently sweeping away the fallen leaves from last night. The whole Tian'in temple, at this moment, seemed solemn and quiet, bathed in the light mountain breeze, blowing with the wind. There was a faint scent of leaves. The sound of the bell drifted, guiding the people at the foot of the mountain, and also hovered in the temple, waking up the sleeping people. He slowly woke up from his sleep. For a long time, he had not slept so peacefully, woke up so peacefully. Even in his dreams, he was very peaceful, not even dreaming, just sleeping peacefully. It turned out that this was a feeling that made people happy. He silently listened to the melodious sound of the bell, as if the place where the sound drifted was not the vast world outside, but his heart. He even had a feeling that the sound of the bell was originally for him alone. Until the sound of the bell gradually subsided, he slowly got up, opened the door and walked out. He raised his head, opened his chest, and took a deep breath. The moist air of the mountain poured into his heart. His face slowly showed a rare look of satisfaction. He really wanted to continue standing like this. But at this moment, a voice came from the courtyard door. "Benefactor Zhang, are you up?" Ghostly turned his head and saw Fa Xiang with a smile, standing not far from the door looking at him. He nodded and said, "Good morning." Fa Xiang sized him up and smiled. "Benefactor, after this period of rest, the injuries on your body are mostly healed. However, as they say, once you recover from a serious illness, you will have to take care of yourself, Benefactor. Mount Meru's terrain is rather high. Sooner or later, it won't be comparable to the secular world. The cold air is very heavy. Benefactor, please be careful." Ghostly nodded and said, "Thank you for your concern. I will remember it. In addition, I don't know if Abbot Puhong is free today. I hope I can pay a visit to the Grand Master and disturb him for a moment." Fa Xiang smiled and said, "That's good. I'm here on my master's orders to invite Benefactor Zhang to meet us after breakfast." Ghostly was stunned for a moment and said, "What? Could it be that Master Abbot is looking for me for something?" Fa Xiang said, "This little monk doesn't know, but I think it's because I want to ask Benefactor about your injuries." Ghostly pondered for a moment and said, "Since that's the case, this one will go and pay a visit to the abbot later." Fa Xiang put his palms together and said, "Benefactor doesn't need to be anxious. Just now, Abbot Fang Zhang specifically instructed us not to rush Benefactor. Benevolent Master is still in the little Tian'in Temple's meditation room at the mountaintop. If Benefactor has time later, feel free to go there yourself." Fa Xiang smiled faintly and said, "In the Tian'in Temple, as long as Benefactor is willing, Benefactor can go to any place without any scruples." Ghost Li's heart moved. He looked at Fa Xiang. Fa Xiang's words seemed to have a deep meaning, as if he had already regarded him as a member of the Tian'in Temple. Perhaps, in the hearts of these Tian'in Temple monks, he, who had once worshipped Puji, after all, was also a member of the Tian'in Temple? Fa Xiang turned and left. Ghostly looked at his back, was silent for a moment, and then walked back to his own meditation room. The moment he stepped on the mountaintop, Ghostly couldn't help but slightly pause his body. For him, this was a place that made him have mixed feelings. Under the morning sun, the little Tian'in Temple was simply located in front of him. the low walls, the small courtyard, where were the traces of that night's thrilling? Looking back, looking into the distance, there were faint voices coming from the Tian'in temple. The incense was flourishing, a lively scene. Perhaps these people who live in peace are happier? He silently turned and walked into the little Tian'in temple. Soon, the unique silence shrouded him. In such a large courtyard, it seemed that only his footsteps were echoing. When he reached the door of the meditation room, Ghostly stopped and subconsciously looked at the back of the courtyard. The path there was blocked by the wall, but he could still see the direction that extended back. But at this time, in the last small courtyard, there was only emptiness. It was like a person came naked and left empty. He knocked on the door of the meditation room. Soon, the gentle voice of Master Puhong came from the room. "Is it Benefactor Zhang? Please come in." Ghostly faintly answered, pushed the door and went in. At this moment, only Master Puhong was sitting cross-legged on the Zen bed, looking at Ghostly with a smile on his face. Ghostly nodded to Master Puhong and said, "Great Master, I heard from Fa Xiang that you are looking for me?" Master Puhong asked, "Yes, but I heard that Benefactor Zhang also has something to discuss with me?" Ghostly pondered for a moment, nodded and said, "Yes, in fact, it is not a big deal. The main thing is that I have disturbed you for many days. Now that my injuries are almost healed, I dare not continue to disturb you." Master Puhong smiled and said, "What are you saying, Benefactor Zhang?" Ghostly shook his head and said, "That day at the foot of Mount Qingyun, the Great Master has saved my life. Since then, here, the Great Master has helped me untie the knot in my heart. I am very grateful. But after all, I am a member of the demon sect. If this continues, it will hurt your temple's reputation." Master Puhong said seriously, "Benefactor Zhang, there is something that I don't know if I should say?" Ghostly said, "Please speak." Master Puhong nodded and said, "Since it is so, forgive me for speaking frankly. Looking at Benefactor Zhang's complexion, you are definitely not an evil person. Falling into the demon path is fate, it is not Benefactor Zhang's fault. Moreover, Benefactor Zhang and Puji Shidi have such a fate. You have fate with my Buddha and Tian'in temple. As long as Benefactor Zhang is willing to turn back and be saved, Tian'in temple will do its best to protect you. Not to mention Qin Yun sect, even if the world's righteous sects come together, my temple will not be afraid." Buddha said, "To save people once is a supreme merit. Since Benefactor Zhang is a person of fate, why not let go of the burden of the secular world and obtain this peace and freedom? Wouldn't that be good?" After that, he looked at Ghostly with an earnest expression. Ghostly did not expect Master Puhong to say such words. For a moment he was stunned. These days in Tian'in temple, his state of mind was completely different from the past. It was peaceful and comfortable. With his deep heart, he very much liked this. But he was such a man, in the end there were still things that he could not let go of. He was silent for a long time, then slowly raised his head, deeply bowed to Master Puhong and said, "I know that Master is sincere to me, you want to enlighten me, but I am a man of the secular world, I rise and fall with the waves, in that secular world, there are countless concerns, but I cannot let go. Master's good intentions, forgive me for not being able to accept." After that, he sighed, turned and walked away, but Master Puhong opened his mouth and said, "Benefactor Zhang, take care." Ghostly said, "Master, is there anything else?" Master Puhong's face flashed a trace of pondering, slowly said, "Benefactor Zhang's heart is like a rock. I dare not force you, but if Benefactor Zhang is willing, my temple has a request, I hope Benefactor Zhang can fulfill it." Ghostly was slightly surprised, said, "What is it? Master Fang Zhang can say it." Master Puhong looked at him and said, "In the past, junior brother Puji fell into such a situation, although it was self-inflicted and unforgivable, but the root of the matter, the great evil devouring blood bead, cannot escape responsibility. Now that junior brother Puji has passed away, but this evil thing is still on Benefactor Zhang's body, harming young Benefactor. Ghostly was silent for a moment, said, Master means. Master Pu Hong put his hands together and said, Young benefactor Zhang does not have to worry, I have no other evil intentions. It is just that this devouring blood bead contains a fierce evil spirit, harming others and oneself. After junior brother Puji passed away, I have been in pain for more than 10 years, but I have not thought of this, and have been pitied by the heavens. I have thought of a way to restrain the evil spirit of this devouring blood bead. I wonder if young benefactor Zhang is willing to try? Ghost Li's face changed color, although the devouring blood bead's power is infinite, but the evil spirit of this devouring blood bead has made him suffer so much. Even his temperament has gradually changed. Sometimes he would think of Puji's original situation, thinking of what if he was also controlled by this evil spirit. He could not help but break out in a cold sweat. But this matter naturally cannot be told to outsiders. Although he was worried, he did not have a good solution. Unexpectedly, today he suddenly heard Master Pu Hong say such words. It hit the most worried part of his heart. Ghostly thought for a long time, then slowly said, Master Fangzhang unexpectedly has such a good solution, I wonder how to deal with it? Master Pu Hong's face was solemn, said, This method is actually very simple. To put it bluntly, it is just using the power of Buddha, boundless compassion, to degrade all the evil spirits of this world. In the back mountain of my Sound of Heaven temple there is a wordless jade wall. It is more than 7 feet high, smooth like jade. Legend has it that the ancestors of Sound of Heaven temple were enlightened under the wordless jade wall, and thus created my Sound of Heaven temple. Ghostly frowned. He did not understand what this has to do with the evil spirit of the devouring blood bead, only to hear Master Pu Hong continue. That area is the most solemn and auspicious place in my Shumi mountain range. As long as young benefactor Zhang meditates there for a period of time, this old monk will lead a group of monks to form a diamond ring array around the jade wall, so that the auspicious qi will flourish. Perhaps it will be able to suppress the evil spirit of the devouring blood bead that is eroding young benefactor Zhang's body. Ghost Li's body trembled. He did not expect Master Pu Hong's vision to be so unique. He did not know when he saw the chaotic scene in his body. He thought for a moment, then resolutely said, Master's kindness, this one understands. Since this is the case, this one will sit under the wordless jade wall for a few days. But after this one will say goodbye. Master Pu Hong put his palms together, nodded, and said with a smile, Benefactor Zhang can rest assured, our temple will not dare to stop Benefactor Zhang. Ghostly nodded, turned around and walked out. Master Pu Hong looked at his back disappearing, sighed, and said to himself, Shidi, your spirit in heaven, you should bless this child. According to Pu Hong Shangren, the wordless jade wall was located at the back of Shumi Mountain. Ghostly also thought that it would be easy to find. Unexpectedly, when he had made proper preparations that day, he followed Fa Xiang and Fa Shan, who had come to lead the way, to the back of the mountain. After walking for more than an hour, he still did not see any trace of it. Ghostly was a little surprised, but he didn't say anything. Fa Xiang, on the other hand, was attentive and thoughtful. Seeing the surprise on Ghostly's face, he guessed something and smiled. Benefactor Zhang, are you wondering why this wordless jade wall is so far away? Since Ghostly was asked, he did not hide it, and said, Dare I ask Shidi, where is this wordless jade wall, and how did it come to be? Fa Xiang laughed as he walked. It's a long story. When the wordless jade wall appeared, naturally no one knows, only that 1,000 years ago, when the founder of the Sound of Heaven temple was still a monk, he wandered around, and one day, for some reason, he mistakenly entered the mountains of Shumi Mountain, lost his way, and could no longer go out. In desperation, the ancestral master wandered around the mountain forest. It was also due to his innate affinity with Buddhism that he saw a stone wall that was as smooth as jade. At that time, the founder was already unable to endure the hunger and thirst, and was very tired, so he rested under the jade wall. Fa Xiang paused for a moment, Ghostly could not help but ask, "Oh, then what happened?" In front of Fa Xiang, there was a fork in the mountain path. Fa Xiang led to the left, but took Ghostly to a downhill road, and at the same time said, "Legend has it that the founder sat under the wordless jade wall for 3 days and 3 nights, and for some reason, from the initial hunger and thirst, he gradually calmed down and entered the perfect state of Buddhism. 3 days later, he actually comprehended Buddhism under the wordless jade wall. In addition, legend has it that Fa Xiang turned his head and gave a mysterious smile to Guili, saying, "It is even more rumored that it was under the wordless jade wall that the founder actually comprehended the supreme true technique of our Tian Yin Temple, the great Brahma Prajna, thus establishing the position of the Tian Yin Temple in the world of cultivation." Ghostly was stunned for a moment, then shook his head. He felt that this legend of the founder of the Sound of Heaven Temple was really funny. There were many untruths in it, and it was somewhat absurd. Originally, he had some expectations for Puhong, but now listening to Fa Xiang's story like it was a story, it made him somewhat disheartened, and he could not help but secretly sigh. Chapter 350. Fa Xiang was attentive, saw the changes in Ghostly's expression, only smiled and led the way, did not speak. As for the tall monk Fashion who was following behind them, he had always been quiet and also did not speak. The 3 of them followed the mountain path for another half an hour, moving forward in the twists and turns between the lofty mountains and precipitous ridges. Unknowingly they had already left Tian Yin Temple far behind, could not be seen anymore. Ghostly did not expect the mountain behind Tian Yin Temple to be so much bigger than what he had imagined. The peaks and ridges were emerald green, the mountain breeze blew gently, along the way there were strange rocks, strange of every description, or there were cliffs and waterfalls, descending from the sky, rumbling like a jade belt. Along the way, he felt his mind was broadened, looking at the beautiful scenery around him. He did not feel bored anymore. Suddenly he heard Fa Xiang said, "It is just ahead." Ghostly was shocked, looked ahead, but it was still a winding mountain path. One side of the road was a dense forest, the other side was weeds and brambles. 3 chi ahead was a cliff, where was the 7 zhang tall wordless jade wall that they mentioned. "May I ask, senior brother, where is this jade wall?" Fa Xiang smiled, walked a few steps forward, came to that cliff, turned back and said, "It is here." Ghostly walked to his side, stood on the cliff, looked up. Below the cliff was a mist pervading, like waves rolling, surging unceasingly. It looked like a valley. And indistinctly there were indistinct mountain figures, but they were all at a very far place. Ghostly concentrated and pondered, turned to Fa Xiang and said, "Don't tell me it is in this valley?" Fa Xiang smiled and said, "It is under our feet." Ghostly was stunned. Fa Xiang already smiled and said, "Let's go down." Speaking, Fa Xiang leapt down, Fashion also followed. Ghostly stood on the cliff, pondered for a moment and also leapt down. The soul-absorbing stick in the mist, glimmered with dark green light, slowly enveloped Ghostly, protected him, and slowly descended. The mist here seemed strange, it seemed thick but not thick, like silk tangled together. No matter how the mountain breeze blew, it did not seem to disperse. In the process of falling, Ghostly's attention was focused on the mountain wall, but all he could see was a sheet of white mist, and he could not see anything. He was bewildered and activated the soul-absorbing stick, moved closer to the mountain wall. Patches of mist like clouds dispersed, slid out to both sides in front of his eyes. While he was concentrating, suddenly, he saw a figure appearing in front of him. Ghostly's heart shook, quickly stopped and looked over. This shock was no small matter. He saw that in front of him, there was another Ghostly who looked exactly like him, looking at him with a face of shock. That person's gaze was deep and his face actually had an ancient look. He was also holding a soul-devouring magic stick in his hand. Just when Ghostly was in shock, suddenly a Sanskrit chant was heard from beyond the heavens, like a heavy bell and big drum, resounded heavily beside his ears. Along with this Sanskrit chant, a solemn power instantly soared from the unknown world beneath his feet, like a huge wave piercing through the sky. The surrounding fog immediately swept over, engulfing the figure and disappearing. Ghostly felt a pain in his heart. The icy cold energy in his body did not activate itself, as if it was extremely repulsive towards this Buddhist energy, automatically resisted. In Ghostly's shock, he also felt that other than the sinister orb evil energy in his body stirring, it seemed to be affected by the Buddhist energy here. The great Brahman wisdom that he cultivated was also unwilling to submit, leapt up, seemed to have the intention to fight it out with the sinister orb evil energy. It had not even started, and there was such a huge change in his body. The energy of the realm here was really unimaginable. Ghostly was shocked. For a moment he forgot about the strange figure in the mist, only urged his own cultivation, protected his heart arteries, and slowly descended. Very quickly, the mist gradually thinned. The scenery below his feet immediately became clear. It was a small stone platform, extremely smooth, 3 zhangs perimeter, sparse trees, several Tian-yin temple monks sitting around it. Looking at the positions of these monks, some far, some near, there was no order, but there seemed to be a secret, faint Buddhist energy circulating within, indistinctly forming a formation. Ghostly looked carefully again, suddenly felt that it looked familiar. After thinking carefully, he recalled that it was a simple and unadorned character, looked like Buddhist incantations. Ghostly very quickly landed on the ground, looked around. Fa Xiang and Fashion were already sitting among the monks, silently putting their palms together, lowering their eyes and eyebrows, not looking at him again. And at the head of the monks, it was Tian-yin Temple Abbot Puhong Master, sitting on his left. Ghostly had seen him before. It was Pufang Divine Monk who displayed his prowess on Qingyun Hill. Instead, sitting on Puhong Master's right was a monk. He looked rather strange. Ghostly had never seen him before, but looking at his withered face, his complexion sallow, as if he was about to die, and his aged appearance far surpassed Puhong Master. Just that he did not know who this was, but to be able to sit on the same level as Pufang, the 2 great divine monks, obviously he was also an outstanding figure in Tianyin Temple. Ghostly did not speak much, bowed his head to Puhong Master. Puhong Master put his palms together and returned the greeting, smiled and said, "Young patron is here." Ghostly nodded and said, "Yes, but what does Abbot Master want me to do?" Puhong Master pointed to that platform, said, "Nothing else. Young patron only needs to sit on that stone platform, meditate and sit for a few days." Ghostly nodded, turned back and glanced at that stone platform, and then looked around, only saw the thick mist above his head. Where was the legendary wordless jade wall? He couldn't help but asked, "May I ask Abbot Master, where is that wordless jade wall?" Puhong Master smiled and said, "After a while, young patron will be able to see it." Ghostly was surprised, nodded his head, turned around and was about to sit on that stone platform. Suddenly a sharp whistle was heard indistinctly in the sky. It was the sound of the wind. It was the howl of a beast, piercing through the clouds and mist, following which a beam of dazzling light actually tore a crack in the thick mist, shot down, shone onto Ghostly. Ghostly took a step back, looked up. Strange rumbling sounds were heard in the valley, like rolling thunder. That piece of thick fog sea suddenly started to ripple. From the initial gentle surging turned into huge waves. The waves undulated, and then more and more cracks appeared. The thick fog also became thinner and thinner. Beams after beams of light, beams after beams of light shone out. Facing this strange phenomenon, Ghostly stared for a long time. The thick mist finally dispersed. Light shone down. In that instant heaven and earth was filled with dazzling light, making everyone unable to look at it. After a while, it then gradually calmed down. When Ghostly opened his eyes again, his body shook. He saw the legendary wordless jade wall. Just in front of him, behind that small stone platform, below the cliff, a precipice like a mirror hung straight down, more than 7 zhangs high, more than 4 zhangs wide. The mountain wall material seemed like jade, but not jade, extremely smooth, reflecting the beautiful scenery of heaven and earth. The mountains near and far were all in this jade wall. and Ghostly and the Tian temple monks under this precipice were as insignificant as ants. Compared to the creation of heaven and earth, humans were so insignificant. Ghostly was silent. After a long time he heaved a sigh, without a word, walked to that platform and sat cross-legged. He did not look at the people around him, breathed deeply and then closed his eyes, just sat there motionlessly. Puhong Master studied Ghostly for a long time, turned his head and glanced at the monks behind him, nodded his head. Dozens of Tian temple monks, including Puhong Master, Pufang Divine Monk and that mysterious old monk beside Puhong Master, Fa Xiang, Fashion etc., put their palms together and chanted. Dozens of faint golden lights slowly floated up, indistinct Sanskrit sounds seemed to be heard from the horizon. Suddenly, the golden light shone brightly. In the strange formation that the monks were sitting on, the golden light flowed and the Buddha's chi was solemn. The golden light emitted by the monks became more and more dazzling. After a while, a deafening roar was heard and a huge golden Buddha mantra appeared on the formation and slowly rose. The Sanskrit chanting became louder and louder, heaven and earth in solemnity. That golden Buddha word rose higher and higher, slowly reached the mid-air and stood erect. Under the illumination of the sunlight, it became more and more difficult to look at. As if triggered by the Buddhist mantra, on that precipice, the originally smooth jade wall slowly revealed the reflection of the Buddhist character. However, it was not the same as an ordinary mirror. Instead, from a small dot, it gradually grew bigger, gradually emitting golden light, slowly revealing the appearance of the Buddhist character. And when the reflection on the wordless jade wall grew bigger, the Buddhist mantra in the air seemed to dim a little. Very quickly, the Buddhist mantra in the wordless jade wall grew so big that it almost surpassed the real Buddhist character in midair. At this moment, the entire wordless jade wall was shining with a golden light. It was dazzling, accompanied by bursts of Sanskrit sounds. Suddenly, a faint golden Buddha light seeped out from the jade wall, slowly shot out, enveloping Ghostly who was sitting peacefully. Ghostly's body moved a little. His face revealed a little pain, but he did not open his eyes and endured it. Very soon, the pain on his face disappeared. He sat quietly and did not move. The Buddha light that shot out from the wordless jade wall was faint. There was no change, only the golden light slowly flashed, an indescribable solemnity. And the surrounding Tian temple monks also did not change their expressions, quietly chanting. The light on their formation also slowly circulated, supporting that Buddha incantation in the sky. Time passed, just like that quietly passed. 3 days later, that Buddha incantation on the wordless jade wall still did not show any signs of weakening. The faint Buddha light that shot out still enveloped Ghostly's body. Ghostly's face was calm, as if these 3 days to him, there was no change at all, still the same as when he first arrived 3 days ago. Instead, the surrounding Puhong Master and the rest of the Tian temple monks, although there was no change in the formation, but everyone's faces showed faint exhaustion. Puhong Master slowly opened his eyes from his meditative state, looked at Ghostly who was still sitting peacefully, after a long while quietly sighed and said, foolish child, in the end still cannot let it go?" After speaking, he gently shook his head, sighed incessantly. Pufang Divine Monk sitting on his left indifferently said, "We have worked so hard, set up the Buddhist subduing evil formation. One is to help him detoxify the sinister orb's vicious energy, more importantly, is to resolve his inner demon. But his heart door is tightly locked, the inner demon difficult to get rid of, even if the sinister orb's vicious energy is resolved. Who knows if in the future he will still turn into a demon? What we are doing today, I'm afraid we are helping the evildoer." Puhong Master frowned, his face darkened, said, "Junior brother, this young man has deep ties with our Tian temple, no matter what we cannot easily give up. Why do you say so?" Pufang's countenance changed, put his palms together and said, "Senior brother is right. It is not that I have any prejudice against this young man, it is just that when When we were separated by life and death, my heart is grieved. I really do not wish to see him walk on the evil path again. Junior brother spoke indiscreetly. Senior brother, please punish me. Puhong Master's face softened, said, How can I not have the same thoughts as you? If not, I would not have set up this subduing evil formation, with the intention to use the Buddhist sect true way to enlighten him. But under this wordless jade wall, he seemed to also. Halfway through his words, suddenly a loud sound came out of nowhere in the originally quiet and serene and solemn valley. The entire wordless jade wall actually trembled slightly. Immediately, the Buddhist incantations in the air and the wordless jade wall were on the verge of collapse. Puhong Master and the rest of the Tian temple monks turned pale with fright, for a moment aghast, quickly activated the true way. Unexpectedly, Ghost Li's face suddenly revealed a pained expression. The soul-absorbing stick which had been suppressed by the Buddhist power for the past 3 days suddenly lit up. A gush of black energy instantly covered his face. Puhong Master did not expect the sinister orb's evil energy to be so tenacious. After 3 days and nights of suppression, it still had the strength to resist, was about to call for the rest to support the formation again. Ghostly could not bear it any longer, made a long howl, leapt up. The Buddhist incantations in the air suddenly dispersed. Ghostly howled to the sky in the incantations, like a madman. At the same time he turned back to look at the wordless jade wall. Lines of dark red light appeared in the wordless jade wall, golden light and red light, fighting incessantly. Just when the lights were flashing chaotically, the strange phenomenon appeared. A sudden clap of thunder sounded in the horizon, the sky dimmed down. Wind and clouds rolled in from all directions, on the smooth jade wall of the wordless jade wall, from top to bottom, little by little as if deeply engraved, a row of big words appeared. Other than that, there were even countless golden ancient unintelligible words, like boiling, flickering and leaping between the golden and red light, dazzling one's eyes. And that row of big words was clear. It was, Heaven and Earth Heartless, treating all living beings as straw dogs. Chapter 351. On that wordless jade wall, innumerable golden ancient characters appeared. Such a strange thing. Even Puhong Master below, all of the Tian temple monks had never seen it before. On that jade wall, at times propitious air rose, at times dark red flashed. The solemn golden light mixed with a strange unfathomable red light, gave one a feeling of suffocation. Ghostly in the air, faced the sky and made a long howl, looking like he was in extreme pain. His gaze then shifted to that wordless jade wall, watching the innumerable characters writhing and swaying, looking carefully. Around his body, the strange soul-devouring light became brighter and brighter. The evil power emitted from his body also became stronger and stronger. Even the Tian temple monks on the ground felt an unprecedented cold air, transmitted from Ghostly in the air, enveloping their surroundings. After these 3 days and 3 nights of the Buddhist formations tempering, the sinister orb evil power not only did not weaken, instead it seemed to be completely stimulated, unprecedentedly powerful. Puhong Master looked anxious, at this juncture where the situation was changing. His expression was like the horizons changing unceasingly, looking indecisive. Pufong instead looked anxious. He looked at Ghostly who was bathed in the dark green light in the sky, frowning tightly, loudly shouted to Puhong Master, Senior brother, what do we do now? Puhong Master inhaled a long breath, resolutely said, This person is Puji Junior brother's successor, it is also where his lifelong ambition lies, we must not save him. His words had just finished, Puhong Master shouted an order, again sat cross-legged, chanting Buddha. The Sanskrit chanting indistinctly started again, following which, the Tian temple monks behind him saw the abbot casting his spell. One by one followed. The next moment, a solemn golden light again floated up from these Tian temple monks. Just that this time the golden Buddha light was different from the Buddhist formation that purified Ghostly 3 days ago. In the solemn image, there was less compassion, more austere. On the other hand, Ghostly, who was in the air, did not seem to notice the golden light gradually rising from the ground and enveloping him. His attention right now was completely attracted by those flickering words on the wordless jade wall. Nobody would have thought, even those Tian temple monks under the wordless jade wall, even if they saw it with their own eyes, they would also not understand, on the wordless jade wall, what was flashing out. On this Buddhist holy land's most revered and pure jade wall, was the legendary evil sect classic Tian Shu 4th volume. The heavenly Tao was boundless, and the affairs of the world were ever-changing. Who could predict it? Tian temple monks worshipped Buddha day and night but were still unaware of this. Ghostly had been through many hardships, the vicissitudes of life, similarly did not know. Just that right now Ghostly, how could he think so much in his eyes? He was almost instinctively attracted by those flickering words. Those pulsating words were impressively the various broken parts of his arduous self-cultivation of Tian Shu, unfolding before his eyes, like a pedestrian facing the numerous steep cliffs and precipices on the road ahead. At the moment when he was at a dead end, suddenly there was a path on the cliff, a torrent crossing a bridge. What kind of joyous state was this? How could he still be distracted? For a moment, the many difficult and obscure parts of his past cultivation suddenly seemed to be suddenly enlightened, one by one unfolded. Since 10 years ago, when he saw the first volume of the heavenly tomes in the ancient cave of Fangs in the blood-drop cave of Kongsang Mountain, 10 years of time had passed like the tide. This man stood between the wind and the clouds. For the first time, he felt the feeling of breathing with the heaven and earth, but also forgetting everything. Panting deeply. From head to toe, every part of his body felt like it was about to explode. Innumerable strange whistling noises surrounded him. The various energies in his body seemed to be boiling, like huge waves, all surging violently. The sinister orb's evil power was icy cold, the inferno mirror's pure yang energy was scorching hot. Taiji Xian Qing Wei was peaceful and upright, the great Brahman wisdom solemn like a mountain. There was also from every part of his body, the 3 volumes of Tian Shu that Ghostly had cultivated in the past. The energy was even more abundant. Heaven and earth changed, creation mysterious. Under the dark clouds, the strange light emitted by that figure in the air instead became brighter and brighter under the darkening sky, directly having the power to defy heaven. Thunder rumbled in the horizon, lightning started to scuttle in the clouds, as if heaven's heart was already enraged. In the clouds, a violent wind blew, the clouds slowly started to rotate. Just above Ghostly, a huge whirlpool gradually appeared. And Ghostly, his eyes were still attracted to the wordless jade wall, oblivious to what was happening around him. And at this moment, the Sanskrit chanting from the ground intensified, solemn golden light shot up to the sky, immediately enveloping Ghostly in it. This golden light was extremely intense, gathered the powers of several Tian temple monks. How could it be ordinary? Immediately it suppressed the evil light emitted from Ghostly's body, enveloped him. The golden light rose. After enveloping Ghostly, the might of the thunder and lightning in the horizon seemed to be restrained, immediately weakened. That strange huge vortex which was slowly forming in the sky also seemed to have the tendency to dissipate. Puhong Master gazed at the firmament, slowly heaved a sigh of relief, suddenly heard that Gon Xing old monk beside him coldly said, "This person's cultivation actually triggered heaven punishmently lay. It can be seen that the evil energy is so strong, even heaven cannot tolerate it. Abbot risked everything to save him. I'm afraid it might not be right." Puhong Master's countenance changed, turned and looked at him. That Gon Xing old monk coldly stared at him. Puhong Master for a moment was speechless. Actually, with Puhong Master's level of cultivation, how could he not feel the waves of strange, murderous, evil energy from Ghostly? It was definitely not good faction skills. What he did today, it was really hard to say if it was right or not. Just that as long as he thought of his Puji junior brother who passed away with hatred, and Ghostly's great mercy towards Puji's remains a few days ago, the deeply moved Puhong Master could not abandon him. Right now Puhong Master was silent. After a long while he was about to speak. Suddenly a commotion was heard beside him. Quite a number of people exclaimed softly. At the same time a strange aura came from the formation. There seemed to be a change. He quickly looked up. Immediately his face changed. Under the suppression and protection of the Buddhist formation, which the Tian-yin temple monks jointly conjured, the evil energy on Ghost Li's body had been forcibly suppressed, completely wrapped up in the golden formation. That mysterious storm in the horizon could not find its target, was also slowly dissipating. Unexpectedly at this moment, the rays of light on Ghost Li's body, which were suppressed to a weak state, suddenly brightened up again, and the turbulent aura was even stronger than before. A rumble, a sudden clap of thunder, exploded in the sky. The gale raged. In the thunder, Ghostly once again howled to the sky, his entire body glowing green, red, gold, scarlet, circulated incessantly, finally slowly converged and merged, transformed into the simplest black and white energies. Just that this black and white energies were also rather strange, sometimes completely white, sometimes completely black, changing unpredictably, but the indistinct strength was felt by all of the Tian-yin temple monks. In the air, the golden formation which condensed the powers of several Tian-yin temple monks actually could not withstand the impact of Ghost Li's newborn true way, slowly weakened. At the same time, the storm in the sky billowed, an enormous vortex appeared again, and this time its speed was even faster than before, rapidly taking shape, right above Ghost Li. When one looked up from the ground, one could see bolts of lightning flashing about madly within the vortex of clouds while thunder rumbled. There were even peerlessly strange hissing sounds coming from within, and it was like the savage mouth of the heavens that intended to swallow someone whole. On the ground, most of the monks' faces showed pain. Maintaining the golden formation was becoming more and more strenuous. Right now not only Ghost Li was resisting the golden light from the formation, but in the sky, inside that mysterious vortex, there was also an irresistible force descending from the sky, tightly clashing against the golden formation. The golden formation which was being attacked from the front and back, the light swiftly weakened. Puhong Master and the rest were all shocked, and at this moment, thunder rumbled in the horizon. From that incessantly spinning, deep in the bottomless vortex, a thick electric ray struck down from the firmament, struck onto the golden formation. The deafening sound cracked. Puhong Master and the rest of the Tian-yin temple monks' bodies shook greatly. Those monks with slightly lower cultivation all turned red, some had already spat out blood. The golden formation wavered and flickered, and finally dispersed, disappearing into nothingness. Puhong Master felt vexed. As the person in charge of the formation, he received the greatest shock, but right now his mind was in the sky. In his anxiety, he actually stood up. Chapter 352. Since the golden light formation had dispersed, Ghost Li was no longer suppressed. The pressure on his body instantly dissipated, but he felt his body relaxed. The new vitality in his body circulated unceasingly, growing and multiplying unceasingly, extremely carefree. However, before he could do anything, he, who had disturbed the will of the heavens, could only see that in the depths of the dark clouds in the sky, amidst the rumbling thunder, it was as if a pillar of light was descending from the sky. It was so powerful that it seemed as if it wanted to pierce through the heavens and the earth, and it came crashing down towards him. Wherever it passed, it was blazing fiercely. Sizzling sounds were heard incessantly around the light pillar. Not knowing if it was because the temperature was too high, it actually melted everything around it. And what Ghost Li was facing was the heaven and earth's might, unavoidable, nowhere to hide. Seeing that Ghost Li was about to be struck by this enormous light pillar, smashed into pieces, Puhong Master and the rest of the monks could not bear to watch. One by one closed their eyes and turned away. Puhong Master was even more distressed, no matter what he could not understand. He originally had good intentions to enlighten Ghost Li, hoping to resolve the evil energy in his body. Why would it become like this, triggering the heaven punishment? Severe thunder which had not been seen for thousands of years, only existed in legends. Could it be, heaven really could not tolerate this man? The light pillar arrived in a blink. Before it reached him, Ghost Lee's face was pale. In the raging wind he opened his mouth to cry out, but no sound came out, drowned in the heaven and earth's might. But he was shrouded by the heaven and earth's might. The 7 apertures on his face were bleeding, his face mournful and despairing. Even the soul-devouring stick which had always loyally protected him, right now facing the heaven punishment, was suppressed until it lost its luster. Everything seemed to be ending. The might of the heaven, a faint elegy seemed to be heard, reverberating in the horizon. Suddenly, the wordless jade wall behind him, which was gradually dimming, seemed to sense something. The innumerable flickering words once again lit up, especially those 9 big words in the middle. Heaven and earth heartless, treating all living things as straw dogs, emitted a glaring and dazzling light, flashing up, looking at that momentum, indistinctly carried a trace of insufferably arrogant air. Even in the face of the heavens that countless people prostrated themselves in worship, the light on the jade wall did not retreat in the slightest, as if it could never be defeated. The light on the wordless jade wall instantly became extremely bright, as if the most brilliant spark had been ignited, and no one could see the scene within. That crazy light instantly covered the sky and covered the earth as it rushed over, from the bottom to the top. It completely covered Ghost Lee's entire body, and at the same time, there was even an incomparably huge light, rushed up to the sky. That endless aura actually directly rushed towards that mysterious huge vortex in the horizon. Boom! 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 In the firmament of the sky, deafening thunder sounds. Each sound seemed to have the power to split the sky. As if enraged, in that instant, that powerful heaven punishment light pillar moved a little, left Ghost Lee's body, struck onto that unyielding brilliance that shot up to the sky from the wordless jade wall. The 2 blazing pillars of light collided with each other, causing the ground and mountains to tremble. Countless boulders and cliffs to crack. Thunder rumbled and tens of thousands of beasts howled. It was like the end of the world. Between heaven and earth, there was a dazzling brilliance that could not be looked at directly. Heaven and earth froze, as if at that moment. On the wordless jade wall, the originally smooth mirror-like stone wall, cracking sounds rang out. From the middle of the stone wall, a crisp sound, a small hole cracked open, following which numerous fine cracks extended out from the center in all directions, becoming bigger and bigger. Finally, in the incessant screeches, a deafening sound, this huge mountain wall rocks flew away, collapsed. In the horizon, the huge light pillar slowly dispersed. The gloomy black clouds seemed to have found an outlet. The violent winds gradually ceased. The thunder sounds also slowly stopped. Following which, heaven and earth seemed to return to tranquility. The black clouds slowly dispersed. That peaceful sky gradually brightened up. A figure slowly landed from the mid-air. It was ghostly, just that right now his face was covered with blood. Unconscious, and protecting his body, was a faint mysterious light. After his body landed, it swayed a few times, eventually dispersed gently. Not a trace of him was left. The Tian-En temple monks stared dumbstruck at the dilapidated wordless jade wall, looked at Ghost Lee, who had luckily escaped from the heaven punishment, unable to speak a word. This sleep seemed to be another long slumber. As if in this there were many people walking to and fro, very busy, and there were people talking beside him, the voices sometimes loud and sometimes soft. It seemed like sometimes there were even people quarreling. But most of the time it was still quiet. In the calm silence, not knowing how long he had slept, indistinctly he felt something, but in the end he did not wake up. Perhaps this kind of deep slumber was actually the hope in the depths of his heart. Footsteps were heard outside the door. Fa Xiang, who was in the meditation room, glanced out, quickly stood up, put his palms together and bowed to Pu Hong Master, who was walking in. Pu Hong Master nodded, glanced at Ghost Lee, who was still sleeping on the meditation bed, quietly said, "Is he all right?" Fa Xiang nodded and said, "Ever since that day, Zhang Patron has been unconscious like this. Just that his breathing is gentle, There are no abnormalities and there are no other injuries on his body. By right he should have woken up long ago, but for some reason, he is still unconscious like this? Puhong Master pondered for a moment, said, "He was lucky to escape from the heaven punishment Lilei. This is already extremely lucky. Heaven punishment is a rare heaven's might. I didn't expect it to happen to him, don't tell me. He is really an evildoer that even the heavens cannot tolerate?" Feixiang's countenance changed, quietly glanced at Puhong Master. Puhong Master's face was solemn, but there was no other unusual expression. Then he quietly calmed down, quietly said, "Teacher, is it that the few teacher uncles are arguing with you again?" Puhong Master gave a bitter laugh, but did not speak. Feixiang was silent. After a long while, Puhong Master unhurriedly said, "The wordless jade wall is our Tian'in temple's most precious treasure, and even more a Buddhist relic passed down by our founder. This time it was destroyed by heaven punishment. It was all because of my own selfishness. I have already decided that after this patron Zhang wakes up, I will resign from the abbot position and from then on face the wall to comprehend Buddhism, to atone for my sins." Feixiang's countenance changed greatly, said in shock, "Teacher, how can you say that? This is not your fault." Puhong Master shook his head, said, "Your teacher uncles are right. I am grateful to Patron Zhang for resolving Puji Junior Brother's vengeful energy and so rashly made a rash decision, overestimating my own abilities and wanted to use the Buddhist Holy Land's Buddhism to enlighten him. Because of this, I attracted heaven punishment, destroyed the jade wall. It is really my sin. Just that." Speaking till here, he instead smiled, spoke to Feixiang, "Just that I have never regretted it. Do you know why?" Feixiang silently shook his head. Puhong Master smiled and said, "That day, heaven punishment struck down. This patron Zhang originally had no chance of survival, but the wordless jade wall took it on its own and saved this young patron. Although the reason for this we all do not know, but the jade wall is psychic, there must be a reason for not wanting to see this patron Zhang die under heaven punishment, therefore it did so. Since the jade wall is like this, it can be seen that what I did was not wrong. So although it is my fault to destroy the jade wall, I also intend to ask for forgiveness, but in my heart, I do not regret it at all." Feixiang clenched his teeth, raised his head and called out, "Teacher." Puhong Master patted his shoulder, smiled and consoled him, walked to Ghost Li's bed, looked at him carefully, nodded his head and said, "Seems like his complexion is much better. If there are no accidents, I expect he will wake up in these few days. You must take good care of him." Feixiang placed his palms together, said, "Teacher, don't worry." Puhong Master nodded, glanced at Ghost Li again, turned and was about to walk out. Just at the moment when he was about to step out of the room, suddenly Ghost Li's body moved, a low moan coming from his mouth. Feixiang's body shook, happily said, "Teacher, he seems to be awake." Puhong Master was overjoyed, quickly walked over and sat beside Ghost Li's bed. Under the gaze of the teacher and disciple, Ghost Li's eyes moved slightly, finally slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 353. Just like the past countless days, the melodious morning bell rang again, reverberating in the Mount Meru mountain range, reverberating in the mist and mountain breeze. It had passed through countless years of time, and would still reverberate day after day in the future. Standing in the morning light, Ghost Li clasped his hands behind his back, listening attentively. He closed his eyes slightly, as if that melodious bell sound reverberated, to savor it carefully. Right now Ghost Li, for some reason, his appearance did not change, but he looked like a different person, from his bearing and demeanor. Compared to the past, there was more calmness, less viciousness. Or maybe it was really those Buddhist formations that had taken effect? This question, among the Tian'in temple monks, after Ghost Li woke up, many of them had this question in their hearts. The day before yesterday, after Ghost Li woke up again, Puhong Master and the rest carefully examined him. There were no other major injuries. Even the slight tremors from the heavy blows did not seem to exist on Ghost Li's body. Puhong Master was overjoyed. As a precaution, He asked Ghostly to stay in Tian Temple for a few more days. Ghostly did not decline, stayed in Tian Temple. These few days, Ghostly was even more reticent than usual, toward someone like him who had angered the heaven and sent down the punishment. The Tian Temple monks mostly avoided him. Only Puhong Master and Ephaseong did not have any scruples, often came over to visit him. And Ghostly himself did not seem to notice the outside world, did not step out of the house. Only when the morning bell and evening drum sounded, he would go to the small courtyard, quietly listen. Dong, the last bell sound, with an unceasing lingering sound, reverberated above Tian Temple for a long time, finally turned silent. Ghostly then slowly opened his eyes. Bathing in Tian Temple's morning breeze, the energy in his body under his quiet exterior was surging, as if his entire person was about to fly up. The Tian Temple monks would not know, but Ghostly himself understood in his heart. In that wordless jade wall, what unexpectedly appeared was the legendary evil sect classic Tian Shu 4th volume. Others might not understand, but he was the only person in this world who had cultivated Tian Shu first 3 volumes. With one look he could tell that it was the crucial 4th volume that he had been yearning for day and night on his cultivation journey. In his past cultivation countless of seemingly indestructible, insurmountable problems, right now, he had already grasped the crux, placed before him. It was almost a broad road, a smooth and boundless road. Even in his heart, he had this feeling: if he continued on this road, it would definitely be very smooth for him. Maybe he could even peek into some realms that he did not dare to hope for in the past. Even when he was looking at his past emotions, at the human affairs before him, he also had a feeling of detachment. He could not help but feel a sense of detachment. But for some reason, in his heart, in such a great situation, he still felt a faint sense of loss, but he didn't know how to describe it. The faintly discernible thought that something was amiss was still lingering in his mind. Ghostly stood there for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking, and no one came in to disturb him. Until he suddenly turned, for the first time in several days, he walked out of this small courtyard. When he left the courtyard, he did not turn back once. Following the steps under his feet, he unhurriedly walked. It was said that this path was once that monk, in order to spread Buddhism, made a great wish and used great powers to create it. Today, countless people were still walking on the path he created, but how many knew he had already turned into ashes? Walking on this path, the layers of stone steps were simple and unadorned. Stepping on it, the feeling of levelness was felt. A few days ago, after the unexpected battle that caused the sky to change color, the earth to shake and the mountains to shake, the temples and halls on Mount Meru were all damaged to varying degrees. Only this flat mountain path was not affected in the slightest. It was still firmly laid on the ground, allowing countless people to walk over its chest. Maybe, to the unpredictable heaven deities, this path also carried some special feelings? Ghostly did not know. He also did not want to know. He walked on this path, only silently recalling the past and old friends in his memories. He slowly walked to Little Tian Temple on Mount Meru. The door was ajar. This place was as tranquil as usual. Ghostly unhurriedly walked over. Behind the door, indistinctly voices were heard. He knocked on the door. The voices immediately disappeared. Then someone seemed bewildered, softly made a sound. The next moment, the door opened with a creak. Ephaseong appeared behind the door. Seeing Ghostly, Ephaseong revealed a smile. Ghostly nodded, said, "Abbot Master in?" Ephaseong smiled and moved aside, said, "Here, please come in." Ghostly walked in, saw Puhong Master sitting cross-legged on the meditation bed, similarly smiling at him. Ghostly walked over to Puhong Master, bowed, said, "Abbot Master." Puhong Master looked at Ghostly's figure, his eyes from top to bottom, and finally at his feet, suddenly nodded, put his palms together and said, "Didn't expect in this short period of time. Patron's skills have improved greatly. It is really worthy of congratulations." Ghostly's brows raised, did not speak. Yang was instead slightly surprised, carefully assessed Ghostly from the side. After a moment of silence, Ghostly slightly lowered his head to Puhong Master, said, "A few days ago, because of me, your esteemed temple's wordless jade wall was destroyed. I really feel uneasy." Puhong Master gently shook his head, indifferently said, "Just a small matter, not worth mentioning." Ghostly was slightly stunned, said, "That wordless jade wall is your esteemed temple's treasure, isn't it precious?" Puhong Master put his palms together, said, "The affairs of the world turn, all living beings are gone, who knows what will happen after? Treasuring it today, who knows what will happen in the future? If patron has the heart," he pointed outside the window, said, "there is a big stone on the right outside Little Tian Temple. Patron, go take a look, maybe you will understand the Buddha's heart." Ghostly nodded, said, "Yes. But I came here today is to bid farewell to Abbot Master." Puhong Master's face did not show any surprise, as if he had expected Ghostly would say that. He only nodded and said, "If patron wishes to go, old monk does not dare to stop you. Just that before patron leaves, old monk has a few words I want to say to patron." Ghostly said, "Master, please speak." Puhong Master said, "Patron in this period of time, faced with many calamities but in the end was able to resolve them one by one. I see patron's heart seems to be enlightened, not sure if it is?" Ghostly pondered for a moment, nodded and said, "Master is discerning. After surviving a calamity, I indeed have some feelings. Looking back on half my life, I have many feelings of regret." Puhong Master's eyes flashed, said, "Patron is a person of great wisdom. Since you have already seen through it, why not see through this worldly feelings and come under my Buddhist sect? With old monk's conjecture, what patron is thinking in your heart, is only the word quiet. What do you think?" Ghostly was silent, after a long time stood up, bowed to Puhong Master, indifferently said, "Master, enlighten me, I am very grateful. Just that I may have some enlightenment in my heart, but it is not that I have seen through the worldly feelings. To me, the worldly feelings is what I cannot bear to part with." Puhong Master shook his head and said, "Buddha said, form is emptiness. All things in the worldly world are like this, gratitude and grudges, love and enmity, beauties and enemies, it is all just the word form, trapping one's mind, disturbing one's peace. Patron, why must you be so stubborn?" Ghostly looked up to the sky and breathed, laughed loudly, turned and left. In a clear voice he said, "Master, you are wrong. Form is emptiness, that emptiness is also form. You want me to see through the worldly feelings, but how can I see through the worldly feelings? I am between heaven and earth, gratitude and grudges, love and enmity, is exactly my life's circumstances. You want me to see through peace, but how would you know, after seeing through it, will it still be me?" His voice gradually deepened and finally disappeared. The man had already left the meditation room and was far away. Yang was silent for a long time, said to Puhong Master, "Master, you have enlightened him several times, a pity." Puhong Master indifferently said, "His enlightenment and cultivation, in the future I'm afraid he will be the world's #1 figure. But such a figure, actually unable to see through his own heart's devil, in the future, it will depend on his own good fortune." Yang lowered his head, placed his palms together and chanted, in the end, did not speak. Ghostly left Little Tian Temple. When he walked out of the temple, he suddenly stopped again, paused for a moment and turned to the right. After a few steps, he saw a huge rock half the height of a person lying on the ground. He walked to the rock and carefully looked at it. The rock was full of marks, but there was not a single word or sentence. There was also no trace of human chiseling. He did not know what mysteries this rock had. Ghostly frowned, pondered for a moment, suddenly his eyes focused. His attention was attracted by a spot on the rock. This rock was mottled. Evidently it had experienced countless years of wind blades and frost swords, riddled with scars, but at that spot, a picture could be seen indistinctly. just that due to the passage of time, it was difficult to identify. Ghostly stretched his hand over, gently swept away the dust on the rock, carefully examined after a long time. He then recognized that it was a shell shape, just that over the passage of time, it had already turned into stone, merged with the rock. And Ghostly then carefully examined the rock again, did not find anything else strange. His eyes again returned to that shell. Could it be that what Puhong Master wanted him to see was this ordinary shell? In it, what mystery was there? He recalled what Puhong Master said in his heart. His eyes looked at that shell, slowly brightened. Mount Meru towered high, within 1,000 miles. There was no sea or deep ocean, but this rock clearly was something from Mount Meru. Thousands of years ago, perhaps this place was a vast ocean, it was unknown. Chapter 354. A person's life, compared to the operation of heaven and earth, the vicissitudes of the world, was like a grain in the vast ocean, a mustard seed. Just that, he remained silent, turned and bowed towards that quiet little temple. When he turned his head back, his face was still indifferent. Where his robes waved, faint white light floated. His figure turned into light, flew up to the sky, gradually disappearing above the firmament. See through. Who can see through the vicissitudes of the world? How can it be compared to the moment in my heart, that moment of faint light? Qingyun Hill, Big Bamboo Valley. The Qingyun battle had already passed for a period of time. After that, Reverend Daoxian, because of the Zhu Xian ancient sword matter, kept a close watch on the Big Bamboo Valley disciples for a period of time, but recently, because the Big Bamboo Valley disciples were very well behaved, the sect head also did not urge them much. Originally, in the Big Bamboo Valley disciples' hearts, although the matter this time was of great importance, but the way he handled it was really too excessive. But no matter what, after all, they had not been disturbed for a long time. Big Bamboo Valley also gradually returned to its usual tranquility. Wu Dei, Hidaji, both of their injuries also gradually recovered. After Sura's examination, they were almost fully recovered. Both of them could walk freely, just that they could not do any heavy work. Therefore, according to the usual routine, while cleaning everyone's rooms, at the same time cleaning that secluded corner little junior brother's room, also continued. This day, Xavion and Du Baishu, both of them, again walked towards that room. Both of them chatted and laughed, like in the past countless times, walked into that courtyard. But at this moment, suddenly, a grey shadow flashed past in that small courtyard which was supposed to be quiet. That grey shadow's speed was extremely fast, but Xavion and Du Baishu almost saw it at the same time. Both of them were shocked, immediately put down the things they were doing and dashed forward. Just that in a blink, that grey shadow disappeared. Both of them searched the entire courtyard, even on the roof, but still did not find any trace of it. Standing in the courtyard, Xavion and Du Baishu looked at each other. Xavion frowned and said, "Don't tell me we saw wrongly?" Du Baishu tilted his head and thought for a while, was about to speak. Suddenly he was startled and quietly said, "Does Xixiang look over there?" After speaking, his hand pointed behind Xavion. Xavion quickly turned around and looked, following the direction of Du Baishu's finger, in the room that was originally his junior brother's bedroom. The door was tightly shut, but the window beside the door, without knowing when, there was a small gap opened. In the past, no one lived here, so the windows were naturally tightly shut. Xavion and Du Baishu looked at each other, saw the uncertainty in each other's eyes. Song Darren composed himself and whispered, "Let's go in and take a look." Du Baishu, for some reason, became nervous. While nodding, he could not help but lowered his voice and said to Song Darren, "Big senior brother, don't tell me it's little junior brother." The corner of Xavion's eyes twitched. Obviously his thoughts were similar to Du Baishu, but even he himself felt afraid of this thought. Maybe, if he really saw that little junior brother who was now a stranger, he also did not know how to face him? His hand, when he touched that wooden door, Xavion and Du Baishu looked at each other again, and then, as if he had made up his mind, Xavion clenched his teeth and shouted, Who is it? While shouting, he fiercely pushed the door open. Almost at the same time when the door was pushed open, a gray shadow flashed across the room. As if it had been startled, it jumped from the table to the bed and turned around at the same time. Its two eyes rolled around and looked at the two people standing at the door with their mouths agape and eyes wide open. It squeaked, squeak squeak squeak. Xiao Hui. Xavion and Du Baishu called out at the same time. Gu. Xiao Hui swallowed the fruit in its mouth, and then picked up a mountain fruit beside it, bit half of it in one bite, eating in high spirits. Big Bamboo Valley, observed Silence Hall. Right now the ground was littered with Xiao Hui's fruit stones, thrown everywhere. Compared to the solemn and serene look in the past, it was rather comical. Right now everyone in Big Bamboo Valley had gathered here, even Tian Bui, who had always been bad-tempered, upon seeing this scene, only frowned but did not get angry. His face was gloomy, not knowing what he was thinking. These 10 years, everyone knew, Xiao Hui had always been with that person, never separated. Right now Xiao Hui was here. But where was that person? That day in front of Qing Yun Hill Tong Tian Peak illusory moon cave, Xavion and the rest saw ghostly with their own eyes, also saw the scene of that little junior brother being severely injured by Zhu Xian ancient sword, after which numerous people surrounded and hunted him down, although after that, there was no more news of him, and even faintly heard, he had been rescued by his accomplices. But why would Xiao Hui appear here? Xiao Hui appeared, where was that person? The same question lingered in everyone's mind, making their hearts heavy. And in observed Silence Hall, only Xiao Hui unscrupulously munching on the fruits. Other than that, there was another extremely happy dog, completely different from the rest. De Huang. This big dog, right now, was extremely excited, completely disregarding its master's gloomy face, barking incessantly, circling around the table that Xiao Hui was crouching on, a bright De Huang tail wagging to and fro, extremely happy. At times it even leapt up with its front two legs, crouched beside the table, its dog nose sniffing Xiao Hui here and there, occasionally sticking out its tongue, licked Xiao Hui a few times. Xiao Hui grinned, scratched its head, casually grabbed an apple beside it, waved it in front of De Huang, and then threw it out of observed Silence Hall. De Huang barked loudly, immediately jumped up, its 4 legs flying, dashed out of observed Silence Hall. Everyone was shocked, looked out. De Huang actually caught the apple in midair before it hit the ground, at the same time immediately ran back, crouched on the table, its teeth loosened, the apple fell onto the table, rolled a few times. Everyone was speechless, Tian Bui even snorted. Xiao Hui laughed incessantly, obviously it had met an old dog friend, its mood was very good. The monkey's tail curled, jumped down from the table, landed on De Huang's broad back, stretched out its hands to hug De Huang's body. De Huang, woof woof woof, barked incessantly, raised its head and puffed out its chest and ran out, not knowing where the monkey and dog were going to run wild to play again. Xavion glanced at Tian Bui and Suru, stood up and was about to go out to chase the 2 animals back. Tian Bui coldly said, "Let them go. That monkey has lived on this mountain for many years. Since it is here, it will not leave." Xavion acknowledged, slowly sat down. Tian Bui was silent for a moment, said, "Other than this monkey, you and Lao Lu did not see any other human figures?" Xavion and Du Baishu shook their heads at the same time, said, "No." Tian Bai's face turned ugly, suddenly waved his hand, said, "All right, all of you go out." Xavion and the rest looked at each other, but their teacher's order was like a mountain, they did not dare to disobey, and could only slowly retreat. When they left, Hidaji was attentive, asked Suru, teacher's wife, "This ground is full of fruit pits, do you want disciples to clean it up?" Before Suru could speak, Tian Bui already angrily said, "Let's talk tomorrow, I told you to go out, did you hear me?" Hidaji was as quiet as a cicada in winter, with a whoosh he retreated, in a blink his figure disappeared. Suru rolled her eyes at Tian Bui, said, "Why do you vent your anger on them?" Tianbai's face was filled with thoughts, pacing back and forth, suddenly raised his head and said to Suru, "You say Lao Chi. That person, could he be nearby?" Suru pondered for a moment, lightly said, "He, that person, has always been the most sentimental. If he wants to see you once, it is also reasonable. Just that with his status, most likely he cannot show himself." Tianbai's countenance changed. His fat face was uncertain, unspeakably strange. Suru glanced at him, sighed and said, "I know what you are worried about, that day outside the illusory moon cave. Although he was injured by the Zhu Xian ancient sword, but after all he did not die, and didn't the rumors say that there was an accomplice who rescued him? When Darren and the rest reported to us afterwards, they all said that the grey monkey was not by his side. From what I see, maybe he knew the danger at that time and so purposely did not bring the monkey with him. And after he escaped with serious injuries, the monkey wandered around Qin Yun Hill. In the situation where it could not find its master, it ran to us. It is not strange." Tian Bui frowned tightly. Suddenly his mouth made a sound, as if he was scolding someone. Suru did not hear clearly, asked, "What did you say?" Tian Bui did not answer, snorted. His brows relaxed, clasped his hands behind his back, and walked towards the rear hall. Suru looked at his back, shrugged her shoulders, feeling helpless. Just when she turned her head back, suddenly Tian Bui called out softly. Suru was surprised, quickly turned to look, couldn't help but smile. Tian Bui seemed to be preoccupied, did not look at the ground as he walked. He accidentally stepped on a fruit pit and slipped. Just that Tian Bui was after all not an ordinary person, with his level of cultivation. He immediately steadied his body. Even so, Suru was already laughing out loud. Making a fool of himself in front of his wife, Tian Bui felt ashamed. His face turned even darker, hatefully scolded, "Damned monkey, when will I skin you, see you eat again?" After speaking, without turning back, he entered the rear hall, leaving only the ground littered with fruit pits in the observed silence hall. Suru stood smiling. Chapter 355. In a blink of an eye, Xiao Hui had already returned to Big Bamboo Valley for a few days. In this period of time, it seemed as if it had left Big Bamboo Valley for almost 10 years. Towards every grass and every tree, the monkey was still so familiar. Throughout the day, Xiao Hui and De Huang played and played, running here and there. The usually quiet Big Bamboo Valley seemed to have become livelier these few days. The dogs barking and the monkey's shrill laughter, reverberated in Big Bamboo Valley from time to time, added some liveliness. Early in the morning, the Big Bamboo Valley disciples came out in twos and threes, looked at the monkey and dog playing and running on the empty ground outside observed silence hall, couldn't help but reveal a smile. He Daji smiled and turned to the crowd. "Ever since little junior sister got married, it has been a long time since it was so lively here." The crowd nodded and sighed. At this moment, suddenly someone coughed from observed silence hall. The voice was loud and imposing. The crowd was shocked. Tian Bui stood there, quickly went up and paid his respects to his teacher. Tian Bui casually waved, considered dismissing the crowd, and then his eyes were also attracted by De Huang and Xiao Hui. After a while, he snorted, said, "Two ignorant beasts, barking like crazy so early in the morning, really not letting people sleep." The disciples were startled. Just that due to their teacher's dignity, they dared not say anything. Tian Bui scolded a few more times. The gist of it was that he had wasted rearing this stupid dog for so many years. In the end it was still so useless, actually playing so passionately with a stupid monkey. The crowd found it funny, but naturally they did not dare to laugh out loud. Unexpectedly, after a while, De Huang, who was playing far away, suddenly barked loudly towards observed silence hall. Tian Bui. Woof woof woof, woof woof, woof 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 woof. A series of dog barks in the morning was extremely piercing, and looking at De Huang's arrogant face, sticking out its tongue, it seemed to be dissatisfied with Tian Bui. Instead it seemed to have heard Tian Bai's curses and was dissatisfied. The disciples wondered at the same time, has Big Yellow really gained some attainment? If not, given how far away it is, as sharp as its ears are, it won't be able to hear us clearly. On the other hand, it'll be a different story if it's an enlightened old dog. While everyone was speculating, Tian Bai's face flushed with anger because of De Huang's offense, angrily said, "Rebellion, rebellion, now even a dog dares to jump out and make a ruckus. Old 6. Amidst the crowd, Du Baishu's entire body quivered, jumped in fright, quickly stood out and said, "Teacher, disciple is here, what instructions do you have?" Tian Bui seemed to be enraged, pointed to where Big Huang and Xiao Hui were still barking loudly, angrily said, "Today at noon you will slaughter that stupid dog for me, stew a pot of dog meat to eat." After speaking, he hatefully turned and entered observed silence hall. Du Baishu stood rooted to the ground, cold sweat dripping down. He lost his voice and said, "What? Master, this?" Before he finished, Tian Bai's figure had already disappeared. After a moment, the crowd behind Du Baishu laughed out loud. Xavion and the rest almost choked with laughter. Du Baishu was anxious and angry, said, "What are you all laughing at? This is teacher's instruction, what should I do?" Xavion walked up, kept his smile, although his eyes were still smiling but his expression was serious, made a solemn and serious look, patted Du Baishu's shoulder, sternly said, "Junior brother, this is the heavy responsibility teacher has entrusted to you, you must complete it well." Du Baishu was about to cry, anxiously said, "Who are you lying to? Who here doesn't know teacher's favorite is De Huang? Don't talk about killing it. Even if we pull off a strand of its fur, teacher will not give us a good look. Now this, if I really accept teacher's edict, when teacher regrets later, can I still live?" Xavion laughed, turned and walked away. The second disciple Wu Di walked over, nodded heavily to Du Baishu, said, "Lao Lu, you are really a clever person, understand teacher's true meaning, since it is so, you just don't listen to teacher's edict." Hidaji looked up at the sky, slowly walked away, his mouth however intentionally or unintentionally said, "But heard what teacher hates the most is us disciples who disobey teacher's edict. Once teacher knows that Lao Lu dares to ignore teacher's words, his laughter drifted with the wind, but he had already walked far away. Du Baishu was like an ant on a hot pan, pacing back and forth at the same place. Looking back, he saw that everyone had already walked towards the kitchen. He could not help but shouted angrily at the back of his senior brothers, "You guys have no code of brotherhood, sooner or later there will be retribution." His voice passed over, not knowing if Xavion and the rest heard it, only saw from afar Xavion did not even turn his head, only stretched out his right hand and waved once in the air, indistinctly, also seemed to hear their laughter. Stupid dog, dead dog, woof woof woof, woof woof. What, you still dare to bark at me?" Du Baishu clenched his teeth, scolded De Huang who was tied to the tree stump. "It is you who are meddlesome, causing me to be assigned such a lousy errand by teacher." Nearing noon, Du Baishu, under the gloating gazes of his senior brothers, caught De Huang who was running all over the mountain, tied it to the tree stump at the kitchen door. Xiao Hui hanging on the branch with its tail, seemed to not understand what Du Baishu was doing, swaying back and forth on the tree, watching the man and dog fighting under the tree. As for De Huang, obviously right now did not have any good impression of Du Baishu. The dog's face was ferocious, barking at Du Baishu incessantly. Du Baishu scolded De Huang incessantly, but definitely did not dare to really do as Tian Bui said, slaughter De Huang and make dog meat stew. His teacher's temperament was eccentric, who knows when he comes out and sees De Huang here, he might take his anger out on him instead. Thinking of these, Du Baishu was really worried, did not know what to do. De Huang was obviously very dissatisfied with being tied to the tree stump, opened its mouth wide, revealing its sharp fangs, growled loudly at Du Baishu. Du Baishu was distraught, stared at De Huang, shook his head, muttered to himself, forget it, anyway I am unlucky, better go and cook first. Hope teacher will be in a better mood later." Speaking, he turned back and walked towards the kitchen, his face frowning, no longer bothered with De Huang. When he reached the kitchen, De Huang's barking was still heard incessantly, but it was probably a dog barking alone, not much meaning. Very quickly it quietened down. In order to gain Tian Bai's favor, Du Baishu put his heart and soul into cooking this meal. He was really concentrating on it. Suddenly he heard De Huang's barking from outside the kitchen, and then it quieted down, followed by what seemed to be a low woo-woo sound. Du Baishu did not take it to heart, wholeheartedly focused on cooking. Anyway, outside the door right now, none of his Shixiang, master and Shenyang would come here. He was happy to have some peace and quiet. After finally cooking a table of good dishes, Du Baishu let out a sigh of relief, took a towel to wipe his sweat, walked out of the kitchen. Unexpectedly, just as he walked out, he was startled, only to see a length of rope hanging above the tree stump. De Huang and Xiao Hui were already gone. Du Baishu was very anxious, looked left and right, did not see any trace of monkey. De Huang, he thought, could it be that one of the Shixiang actually played a joke on me at this time? He immediately ran to the disciples' bedroom, asked one by one. Unexpectedly no one knew anything, some even joked with him. But how could Du Baishu still have any mood to joke? His mind was stuffy, spinning around. At this time, suddenly a loud barking came from afar. Everyone was surprised. Du Baishu was the first to rush out, carefully identified. It actually came from Sha Danan's room. Du Baishu hurriedly rushed over to that room. The rest of the Big Bamboo Valley disciples also rushed over. When they entered to take a look, they saw De Huang standing in the courtyard, barking loudly towards the sky, and Xiao Hui was nowhere to be seen. Everyone looked up at the sky, only to see the blue sky high up, endless blue, not a bit of abnormality. Xavion and others quickly searched, unexpectedly after searching all the rooms, did not see Xiao Hui's shadow. Just like its mysterious arrival, Xiao Hui, this monkey, once again mysteriously disappeared. Not knowing why, in De Huang's barking, everyone felt lost. That noon, when Du Baishu nervously welcomed the lunch, only Serene appeared in front of the disciples. Everyone felt strange, but Du Baishu was surprised and happy, but his face still showed concern, asked, "Shenyang, why did Master not come?" Suru rolled her eyes at him and was too lazy to care about him. She only faintly turned her head and looked towards the direction of observed Silence Hall, a strange expression on her face. After a moment she then said, "Your teacher he has some thoughts. Not in a good mood, don't want to eat today." Everyone was surprised, but looking at Surin's expression, they did not dare to ask. On Big Bamboo Peak, it seemed to have regained its former tranquility, other than the occasional De Huang barking to the sky, as if nothing had happened. A figure floated down from the depths of Qin Yun Hill, light and mysterious, like the legendary spirit in the mountains. Just that this figure swept to somewhere at the foot of Qin Yun Hill, suddenly paused. The originally rapid speed made a low whistle sound in the air, abruptly stopped, causing the grasses and flowers under his feet to make a sound. All of them were blown to the front by the wind. It was ghostly. No one knew which Qin Yun Hill boundary ghostly came from, but on his shoulder, Xiao Hui once again lay on his shoulder, reuniting with its master. Xiao Hui was clearly very happy, its long tail curled up, the end even wrapped around one of Ghost Li's arms. Especially when that big wine bag on Xiao Hui's body suddenly bulged again, the fragrance of wine permeated the air, and Xiao Hui was even more delighted, hugging that big bag lovingly. Every now and then it would open the bag and drink a mouthful, a satisfied expression. But Ghostly clearly would not be like Xiao Hui. Right now his expression was indifferent. His eyes swept around, the dense forest was dense, a stretch of silence, only indistinct bird cries could be heard. Ghostly suddenly sneered, faintly said, "Come out." No one answered. Ghostly also did not speak, only slowly turned his body, quietly stood facing a certain direction. After a while, someone suddenly sighed and said, "It has only been a few days. I didn't expect Gongzi's skills to improve to such an extent. It is really admirable." A figure flashed, a black-attired man walked out from the depths of the forest. It was Mr. Ghost. This person had always been mysterious and unfathomable, always appearing in unexpected places. Ghostly looked at him, his gaze indifferent, although he did not reveal a disgusted expression, but clearly he did not have a good impression of this person, said, "You are waiting for me here, what's the matter?" Mr. Ghost's eyes wandered, first looked at Xiao Hui on Ghostly's shoulder, especially stared at the third eye on Xiao Hui's forehead for a while, then looked at Ghostly, said, "Why, Vice Sect Head is not willing to meet me?" Ghostly snorted, did not speak. Mr. Ghost nodded, said, "This is also up to you, but this time it is not that I have something to say, it is Sect Head Ghost King had sent me a letter a few days ago, asking me to pass a message to you." Ghostly frowned, said, "What is it?" Mr. Ghost said, "Ghost King Sect Head heard that you were injured in front of Qing Yun Hill Illusory Moon Cave. He was very concerned, ordered those hiding in Central Plains to find you, and also helped him to pass the message. If Vice Sect Head is found, if Vice Sect Head is unwell, you can return to the Wildlands to recuperate, your health is the most important. If luckily Vice Sect Head is fine, then there is one matter, I will have to trouble Vice Sect Head." Ghostly was silent for a moment, said, "Speak." Mr. Ghost behind the black veil seemed to laugh faintly, his laughter low and deep, said, "Ghost King Sect Head already knows, the beast deity had fled in defeat in this Qing Yun battle. This beast had killed countless of our holy sect disciples, is our holy sect's irreconcilable enemy. Right now it is a rare opportunity to kill this beast. This time, he must be escaping to the southern border that he is familiar with, and in the sect only Vice Sect Head is more familiar with the southern border, therefore hope Vice Sect Head to the southern border to pursue and kill. It can also be considered as doing a great deed for our holy sect." Ghostly was silent for a moment, nodded and said, "All right, I will go." Mr. Ghost nodded slightly, but at this moment he suddenly walked a few steps forward, came before Ghostly, suppressed his voice and said, "But this trip, Sect Head specially instructed me privately to pass on a message to you, although it is important to pursue and kill the beast deity, but the most important thing is still one more thing." Ghostly was stunned, said, "What?" Mr. Ghost's eyes glimmered, quietly said, "Sect Head instructed, there is a ferocious beast Taotai beside the beast deity. No matter what, even if the beast deity escapes, but this ferocious beast Taotai must be captured alive and brought back to the Wildlands. This matter is of great importance, Vice Sect Head must remember. Ghostly frowned tightly, looked deeply at Mr. Ghost, said, "What does Sect Head want Taotai for?" Mr. Ghost stood up, his tone returned to normal, faintly said, "This is not what I am able to know." Ghostly watched for a long time, suddenly turned, without even looking back. His figure like lightning, swept out in an instant, disappeared in a blink, leaving Mr. Ghost standing where he was, looking at the direction Ghostly had left. After a long while suddenly muttered to himself, "Strange, how can his skills in such a short period of time advance to such an extent? That day, that group of black-attired men who saved him, who were they?" The whispers, drifted with the wind, quietly reverberated in the dense forest, eventually disappeared. Chapter 356. After that demon-beast catastrophe, from north to south, everywhere was a tragic, desolate scenery, thousands of miles without human habitation, hundreds of villages without human voice. These were common occurrences. The north, because of the short period of suffering, it was still better. The further south, the more tragic the scene was. Dilapidated walls, dilapidated cities and towns, were everywhere. Even in the open fields in the wild, eerie white bones could be found from time to time. It was even more ghastly. The wind and smoke rustled, a desolate scene. In this secular world, people were like grass and ants, unable to control their own fate. Many of the commoners who escaped to the north, after confirming that the calamity had indeed retreated, began to slowly return home. The endless, desolate land slowly began to have people. Just that in this scene, there was still a lot of sorrow, both sides of the road, Corpses could be seen from time to time. Some were harmed by the demon beasts. Some, after the calamity, starved and cold on their way home, actually lost their lives in a foreign land. In between, occasionally in a few remote places, there were still small groups of demon beasts. From time to time there were rumors of demon beasts harming people. Just that at this time, it was after all the general trend, although the small groups of demon beasts were still frightening, but it was already unable to stop more people from returning home. And these beasts that were struggling at death's door, in fact soon disappeared without a trace. Because among the numerous commoners who returned home, there were many good faction disciples. Once there were rumors of demon beasts harming people, very quickly they would be subdued by these good faction disciples. That day at Qin Yun battle, the beast deity was defeated by the Zhu Xian ancient sword but did not die on the spot. The good faction people were not fools. The evil faction knew to hit a person when he was down, cut the weeds and pull up the roots. The good faction naturally also understood the logic of eradicating evil completely. Therefore, many of the good faction sects sent their proud disciples. Some small sects even turned out in full force. If there was an opportunity to capture the beast deity, looking at the world, how could the credit and reputation be ordinary? Moreover, the beast deity was a peerless evil person. If one were to say that he did not have any exceptional magical weapons, even a fool would not believe it. This kind of speculation, mixed in the crowd like the tide, spread out, surging towards the south. Behind the gradually peaceful world, countless people were holding their breath and watching. In comparison, few people cared about the suffering of the common people in the secular world. Following this wave of people returning to the south, Tanis Ka, Xiao Huan and Wild Dog Taoist, their feelings were different from others. Tanis Ka was still holding the bamboo pole in his hand. On it was still the piece of white cloth with the words "Immortal Guide" written on it, but the original white, in this chaotic time of war, had become black and yellow. At a glance, there were even a few holes. Although a cool breeze blew past, the banner still fluttered in the wind. However, it no longer had any immortal chi. It was completely broken and drooping. As for Wild Dog Taoist, for such a long time, he still followed Zhou Yixian and Xiao Huan, the three of them roaming the world. But right now he was using a piece of cloth to cover his face, not for any other reason, just that at this time, the surrounding commoners were somewhat sensitive to people with slightly strange faces. If not careful, most would be mistaken as one of the demon beasts. It would be too unjust. After a few such misunderstandings, even without Tanis Ka rolling his eyes or Xiao Huan persuading, Wild Dog Taoist himself could not take it anymore, found a piece of cloth and covered his face. Among the three, Xiao Huan looked the most refreshing. Originally, a young and beautiful girl, naturally would attract attention and good-looking. In this sorrowful and lost crowd, she seemed to be the most beautiful figure. Along the way, different from the people around her, she often maintained a smile, but it was not the kind of gloating look. On the contrary, she always ignored Tanis Ka's incessant advice, did her best to help the helpless people around her. If someone fell from exhaustion, she would help them up, or if someone was hungry and cold, she would send food and clothes, or if someone was sick and weak, she seemed to have some medical skills, would go up to take a look. Even when she saw the corpses by the roadside, she would quietly walk over, not avoiding the stench, roughly bury it, considered a kind of comfort. Along the way, travel-worn, other than the solemnity of facing the sick and the dead, Xiao Huan's face seemed to always have a trace of smile. In such a gloomy road, she seemed to be a celestial who bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. Tanis Ka was still that always quietly nagging, and Wild Dog Taoist followed behind Xiao Huan, never once stopped her. He just rushed to do what Xiao Huan wanted to do. He would do it first, burying the corpses. He dug the pit. Helping the weak, he personally carried the burden. Along the way, in his eyes, only that delicate and pretty girl's figure. Whatever Xiao Huan did, he would do it, even if the years were more bitter, the journey more tiring. He did not seem to care. Just that, they were after all not celestial beings, not to mention other things. There were so many starving commoners, there was only a little food, even they would run out soon. Forced, this day the three of them had to temporarily leave the group, walk towards the wilderness, hoping to find some food in the forest. Under the catastrophe, the situation was so tragic. Tanis Ka held the bamboo pole in his hand, looked at the gradually darkening sky, shook his head, sighed and said, "These years, it is really hard to live on." Xiao Huan walked beside him, smiled and did not speak. But in this short period of time, although her face had a faint travel-stained look, but she was still as beautiful as before, there was also some maturity that she did not have in the past. Wild Dog Taoist followed behind her. His tall shadow seemed to overlap with Xiao Huan's slender figure. His face was wrapped by the cloth, nothing could be seen, only a pair of eyes shining. Right now they were already far away from the main road, standing on a small hilltop. This night the dark clouds were thick, only a few distant stars could be seen but not a trace of moonlight. The surrounding wilderness, right now it was quiet, only the cries of insects were heard from somewhere, sometimes long sometimes short, not knowing where it came from. Xiao Huan paused, as if she recalled something, turned and smiled at Wild Dog Taoist. "Priest, now there is no one else, you can take off the cloth on your face. Wrapping it for a whole day, I'm afraid you must be very uncomfortable." Wild Dog Taoist's eyes glimmered in the dark night, slowly took down the cloth covering his face, revealing his strange face, quietly said, Actually I am fine. But you have been busy the whole day today, you are the one who is exhausted, right?" Tanis Ka also stopped, looked around, saw a dead tree lying beside him, quickly walked over and sat on it, then did a relaxed stretch, then rolled his eyes at Xiao Huan, said, "Yes, it is she who is busy, it is she who is compassionate, so she gave her grandfather's dry rations to others to eat, and now even her grandfather is starving." Xiao Huan blushed, walked over and stood behind Tanis Ka, stretched out her hands and lightly patted Tanis Ka's shoulder, said, "Grandfather, we are still considered good, but look at those people, if they still don't eat, they really won't have the strength to continue walking, I'm afraid they will die." Wild Dog Taoist looked left and right, said, "All of you sit here, I will go to the forest to see if I can catch some wild beasts, temporarily fill my stomach." Xiao Huan smiled and said to Wild Dog Taoist, "All right. Thank you, Taoist priest." Wild Dog Taoist grinned. Tanis Ka suddenly snorted, sneered and said, "What are you laughing at? And it's fine to laugh. Why do I see you laughing so wretchedly? Don't tell me you are thinking of something unscrupulous in your heart?" Wild Dog Taoist was startled, quickly kept his smile, looked at Xiao Huan, saw Xiao Huan looking at him apologetically. His eyes immediately brightened, where was the slightest anger, directly treated Tanis Ka as if he did not exist, completely ignored him, said to Xiao Huan, "Then all of you wait for me to come back." After speaking, he quickly walked into the forest. Tanis Ka grumpily grumbled. Tani behind him said, "Grandpa, that Wild Dog Taoist has been with us for so long, why are you still not giving him a good face? Besides, we are indebted to him for taking care of us along the way, and he is not a bad person." Tanis Ka snorted, said, "What do you know about good person and bad person? He followed us, isn't it for grandfather?" Xiao Huan called, cut off Tanis Ka's words. Tanis Ka grumbled a few words, did not speak any more. Swishing sounds were heard in the forest, followed by a flapping sound. After a long while, a series of rapid footsteps were heard. Wild Dog Taoist's face was filled with joy, carried a wild bird and ran out from the forest. A few days ago, after the demon beast catastrophe, all living beings were plunged into misery. Even in the wild, these wild beasts and mountain birds seemed to be much lesser than before. Today Wild Dog Taoist's luck was good. He actually caught a bird that slipped through the net. Wild Dog Taoist excitedly ran back to where he was, loudly said, "Look, what I caught!" Suddenly, his voice abruptly stopped. On the empty ground, there was not a single person. Tanis Ka and Xiao Huan were nowhere to be seen. Pada, the wild bird, fell from Wild Dog Taoist's hand onto the ground. The night breeze was cold, the chill seemed to instantly penetrate deep into his bones. Wild Dog Taoist's body, for some reason, started to shiver. He walked forward step by step. On that fallen withered tree, there were even traces of Tanis Ka sitting on it. They are gone, gone. Wild Dog Taoist's mind was in a mess. His dog's expression fluctuated, looked extremely terrified and sorrowful. Right now, Wild Dog was dumbstruck like a wooden chicken, but the next moment, his body suddenly shook. His eyes brightened. Behind the withered tree, there were a few messy footprints, and beside the footprints, in the soft soil, there was a huge footprint twice the size of a normal person, with 3 teeth in front. It was definitely not a human's. Chapter 357. Wild Dog Taoist's countenance changed greatly, first delighted and then shocked, and at this moment, a long howl was heard from afar, the sound mournful, like an evil wolf howling at the moon. Wild Dog Taoist involuntarily stepped back, but the next moment, the muscles on his dog face trembled slightly. Suddenly, with a loud roar, his entire body dashed into the dense forest where the howl was coming from. Looking at him, he looked like a mad dog. A mad dog! Just when Wild Dog Taoist dashed into the dense forest, in the dark sky, a white light suddenly lit up, sped over from the north, streaked across the horizon, broke through the air, without any pause, flew straight to the south like a meteor. And on the ground, after a while, when that white light was still lingering in the horizon, a black figure appeared not far from where the clearing was. Looking carefully, he was dressed entirely in black. His face was covered, but he was panting slightly, stopped in the forest, muttering to himself, "How can his skills be so advanced? It really is like seeing a ghost." As he was resting, he suddenly felt something and turned his head to look into the depths of the forest. He could hear the faint sounds of fighting coming from the depths of the forest. The man in black hesitated for a moment, then looked up at the white light in the sky. He shook his head and sighed. And then his body flashed, like a ghost, flashed into the direction where Wild Dog Taoist had dashed in. Wild Dog Taoist held his Fong magical weapon in his hand, looking nervous. Just a moment later, his shoulder was dark red, seemed to be wounded. But before him, there were 2 enormous demon beasts, tiger head and lion body, as tall as a human. Wild Dog Taoist in front of them looked like he could not withstand a single blow. Zhou Yixian and Xiao Huan right now were behind those 2 demon beasts. In this dense forest, the 2 demon beasts seemed to have made a nest in this desolate place. Many branches and grass were piled up in a disorderly manner. A fishy stench assaulted the nostrils. But the most terrifying thing was, dead bodies were scattered everywhere, and other than Zhou Yixian and Xiao Huan, there were still 7 or 8 living people here. But if they were not unconscious, those who woke up would be emaciated, terrified. Not knowing where did these 2 demon beasts abduct so many people, but from this, one could imagine the demon beasts' catastrophe, how tragic it was. Facing these 2 enormous demonic beasts, Wild Dog Taoist's breathing quickened. He was on high alert. Just now when he rushed here, he saw Tanis Ka and Tani were indeed here. Before he could shout, he was already attacked by 2 demon beasts. After exchanging blows, these 2 demon beasts were not ordinary, extremely strong, actually managed to wound Wild Dog Taoist's shoulder. But even so, Wild Dog Taoist was after all a cultivator, different from the common people. In his panic, he wielded his magical weapon and similarly injured a beast demon. Right now that beast demon's front leg was dripping with blood. Clearly it was not in good shape. Just that these 2 demon beasts looked extremely ferocious. Seeing the blood, not only did they not retreat, instead they stared unwaveringly at Wild Dog Taoist. Just that they had misgivings about the magical weapon in his hands and temporarily confronted each other. And Wild Dog Taoist was groaning in his heart. That exchange just now, he understood, if it was one such demon beast, he might be able to win by a narrow margin. 2 together, he would definitely die. He might be able to turn and escape, but for some reason, his eyes intentionally or unintentionally saw that pair of worried and frightened eyes behind the demon beasts. He could not move his feet and escape alone. Some things, was it really impossible to escape? The ferocious demon beasts roared, finally could not take it any more, pounced over. Two black figures swept up a gust of wind in the shadows, accompanied by Tawny's screams. Wild Dog Taoist's throat was dry, both of his legs trembling, instinctively turned and wanted to run. Just that, his body, instead pounced forward, towards that ferocious demon beasts, as if mad dog. The result was instantaneous. The two demon beasts' foreclaws almost at the same time grabbed into Wild Dog Taoist's body, and Wild Dog Taoist's fanged magical weapon stabbed into the chest of the injured demon beast. The demon beasts and Wild Dog Taoist screamed at the same time. Tawny's screams had already turned into cries. Blood splattered, Wild Dog Taoist felt like his body was about to split, as if his body was being torn into two, staggered backwards. In his panic he could only see 4 wounds on his body, that blood gushed out like spring water. Ahead, that demon beast howled a few times, its legs gave way and fell to the ground. The demon beast beside wailed, did not bother to pursue Wild Dog Taoist, instead beside that dying demon beast, using its head, using its claws to nudge its companion. Just that the demon beast's wound was pierced straight into its heart. After struggling for a few times, its head fell to the ground, dead. Puff, a light sound, Wild Dog Taoist finally could not take it, knelt on the ground, his upper body almost soaked in blood red, panting heavily, his dog face pale. This sound startled the remaining demon beasts, seeing its companion dead. This demon beast seemed even more enraged, roared to the sky, its fangs like blood, pounced over again. Wild Dog Taoist was about to lose his life under the beast's claws. Suddenly the ground blurred, a yellow light flashed, a few talismans fluttered. Wild Dog Taoist was nowhere to be seen. The demon beast pounced on empty air. The demon beast for a moment was shocked, but not long after, suddenly a sound was heard. Tanis Ka together with Wild Dog Taoist, who was covered in blood, fell from the sky, his hands still clutching a few talismans. This was naturally Tanis Ka displaying his self-proclaimed ancestral immortal skills, the demon beast's sneak attack on him and his grandson. It happened suddenly, in a short while they were already restrained, under the demon beast's bloody mouth. How would they have the chance to misbehave? Fortunately Wild Dog Taoist was hot-headed and rushed over to save them. Then there was a moment of respite. He wanted to take the opportunity to escape, but unexpectedly Wild Dog Taoist's life was at stake. In helplessness, Tanis Ka could only save them first. Just that his few moves of spells were just like a 3-legged cat's skill, although it was similar to Taoism's 5 ghosts moving house, kind of strange skill, and moved Wild Dog Taoist away, but the skill was only halfway through. For some reason it slipped up. The two of them actually fell down from midair, for a moment in a sorry state. And fortunately when they fell, Wild Dog Taoist was on Tanis Ka. If not, the momentum of the fall most likely would have taken his life. But right now it was not their turn to think too much. That demon beast in a blink, in a rage, had already pounced over again. Tanis Ka and Wild Dog Taoist were dizzy from the fall. Wild Dog Taoist was slightly better, but with his serious injuries, he could not avoid in time. Helplessly, he could only wait for death. On his dog face, a trace of bewilderment quietly flashed past, looked back, seemed to want to see something. Unexpectedly at this moment, a figure suddenly dashed up, blocked in front of Wild Dog Taoist and Tanis Ka. That person was heard shouting, "Grandpa!" Priest, under the demon beast's cold claws and sharp teeth, Xiao Huan's despairing weeping but calm face. In that instant, Wild Dog Taoist felt a gush of hot blood rushing to his head, his entire body like boiling, looking at that figure, a delicate and beautiful figure. Boom! A loud sound, the two figures collided together. Xiao Huan staggered and fell to the side, covered in mud, but she did not notice these, looked back, saw Wild Dog Taoist who pushed her, pounced forward, tangled with that demon beast, pinning the demon beast to the ground. In its rage, the demon beast stretched out its sharp claws, madly scratched and stabbed Wild Dog Taoist's back. Instantly blood and flesh splattered, and Wild Dog Taoist actually held on tightly to the demon beast, did not have the slightest intention of letting go. Xiao Huan and Tanis Ka right now were pale, and the crowd behind them were also dumbstruck. After a moment, someone shouted, everyone who could walk rushed over, surrounded that demon beast, picked up whatever weapons they could, if they could not use their own hands, legs and even teeth, desperately hit that ferocious demon beast's body. That demon beast was still roaring loudly at the start, resisting with all its might, but after a while, its voice gradually became softer, deeper and deeper, and finally there was no more sound. And the surrounding crowd also seemed to have gone mad, desperately hitting the demon beast's body. Until Tanis Ka was the first to wake up, quickly stopped the crowd. Saving lives was more important, the rest then slowly stopped. And with this relief, immediately many of them collapsed on the ground. Xiao Huan's face also had a few spots of blood, but she did not care, quickly used all her strength to pull the demon beast's body, trying to pull Wild Dog Taoist out from under the demon beast. Unexpectedly, after pulling for a long time, the demon beast and Wild Dog Taoist could not be separated. Xiao Huan was shocked and anxious, almost cried out. In the end it was Tanis Ka who did not lose his composure. After a careful inspection, he discovered that Wild Dog Taoist's hands had actually penetrated through the demon beast's tough fur, straight into its chest, embedded inside. No wonder they could not be separated. After discovering this, Tanis Isian hurriedly called for help. With the help of those who still had strength to spare, finally Wild Dog Taoist's bloody hands were pulled out from the demon beast's body, separated the two bodies. Xiao Huan's beautiful face was pale, placed Wild Dog Taoist's body on the ground, was about to ask. Suddenly her face turned pale, using her hand to feel Wild Dog Taoist's nose, immediately dumbstruck. Priest Tanis Ka anxiously asked, what happened to him? Xiao Huan's lips trembled slightly, her eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling as she cried, Priest He has already breathed his last. Tanis Ka for a moment was also stunned, dumbstruck and unable to speak. In Xiao Huan's sorrowful sobs, under the dim light in the darkness, Wild Dog Taoist's strange face, that pained expression, indistinctly had a twisted smile in the pain. He was dead, just like a mad dog that had died. In this world, who had ever been sober? Chapter 358. Those who managed to escape with their lives, after resting, either remained silent or left a few words of consolation, and then one by one left this bloody and terrifying place. In this chaotic world, whose life was not important, who could care about whose life? Every day and every night, in every strange and secluded place, didn't the same scenes of life and death happen? Tanis Ka and Tani also left that place. The demon beast's den stank and disgusting. It was really not a place for humans to stay. They barely managed to move Wild Dog Taoist's body out from the demon beast's den, placed it on the empty ground where they just entered the forest. Wild Dog Taoist's body still seemed to be slightly warm, just that. Eventually it slowly cooled down. Tanis Ka frowned, sat aside, shook his head and sighed. Tani knelt beside Wild Dog Taoist, choking with sobs. The night breeze whistled, swayed the treetops. In the shadows, the mysterious black-attired man saw everything. Even to him, to kill those two demon beasts was as easy as lifting a finger, but his blood seemed to be cold. From the beginning to the end he stood in the darkness and watched silently. Right now, his eyes were sizing up Tani, and then shifted to Tanis Ka. After a long while, Tanis Ka quietly said, "All right, Tani, he is after all dead. Let's find a place to bury him, let him rest in peace." Tani's body trembled, her sobs became louder, suddenly looked up and cried to Tanis Ka, "Grandpa, don't you know everything? Why don't you think of a way to save him?" Tanis Ka gave a bitter laugh, said, "I am not the Nine Nether Yamaluo, and even more not the Heaven Deity. This kind of resurrection spell, how would I know?" Tani choked, said, "But priest, he died to save us." Tanis Ka sighed, His eyes shifted to Wild Dog Taoist's face, nodded his head and said, "Speaking of which, I have misjudged him before, never thought that a person like him would actually have true feelings and true nature. AI, but now it is too late to say anything. Tawny, listen to Grandpa, let's bury him properly." Xiao Huan was stupefied, only tears kept falling from her face, drop by drop, wetting Wild Dog Taoist's palm. In the shadows, the black-clothed man's eyes flickered, but there wasn't the slightest trace of pain or pity in his eyes. In his eyes, the people of this world seemed to be a living drama, and only he was coldly watching from the side. Tanis Ka stood up and looked around, but in this barren mountain, how could he find anything useful? After searching for a long time, he could only grab a wooden stick and dig a few times on the ground. However, only a small amount of soil was dug out. If he wanted to dig a hole to bury someone, who knows how long it would take? Could it be that they couldn't even bury him properly? Tanis Ka let out a long sigh, a rare look of vicissitudes appeared on his face. As he sighed, he turned around and suddenly frowned. Xiao Huan had already stopped crying. After wiping away the tears on her face, she also found a wooden stick and started sweeping beside Wild Dog Taoist, sweeping the withered leaves and scattered branches far away. Tanis Ka initially thought that Xiao Huan knew that digging a hole would be difficult and so wanted to tidy up the area around Wild Dog Taoist. Unexpectedly, the more he looked, the more he felt something was wrong. Xiao Huan swept a 5-chi radius circle around Wild Dog Taoist, abandoned the wooden stick and slowly walked back. Her face looked less sorrowful but more determined. Tanis Ka saw Xiao Huan's expression was not right, walked a few steps forward and said, "Xiao Huan, what are you doing?" Xiao Huan quietly said, "I want to save him." Once the words were said, Tanis Ka was shocked, even the black-clothed man in the dark. His body also shook, his eyes immediately fixed on Xiao Huan. Tanis Ka was stunned, said, "What did you say?" Xiao Huan's voice was still deep, but the words she said were very clear, said, "I want to save him." Tanis Ka shook his head and hurriedly said, "Yes, Xiao Huan, I understand what you mean." "No, not this, I mean, what method are you going to use to save him?" Xiao Huan stretched out her hand and straightened Wild Dog Taoist's body, but her hands were in a strange position, raised above her shoulders, one hand facing the sky, one hand clenched into a fist. At the same time she said, "Priest, he died to save us, I cannot do nothing." Tanis Ka's brows frowned tighter and tighter, looked at Xiao Huan and then straightened Wild Dog Taoist's legs, placed the right leg under the left leg. His face turned even uglier, suddenly loudly said, "Are you crazy, Xiao Huan? Don't tell me you want to use collect soul art?" Xiao Huan was silent for a moment, quietly said, "Grandpa, I only know this thing, maybe it can really save a life?" "Bullshit." Tanis Ka for the first time scolded Xiao Huan so loudly. "What nonsense are you talking about? That collects soul art although has the special ability to collect souls, but this art has always been an unorthodox art, not to mention the unpredictable danger, disturbing the wandering souls. It is a big violation of the ghost world's taboo. You don't want to live anymore? Also, this art has always been used on living people. If the breath is still there, then the soul is still there. With this you can cast the art. How are you going to do it to a dead person? Even if you have this art, where are you going to find his soul? Don't tell me you want to go to the 9 nether hell to look for him among the endless ghosts?" In the darkness, that pair of eyes glimmered, as if he suddenly discovered something unbelievable. Xiao Huan's eyes reddened, cried and said, "Grandpa, he just died not long ago. Maybe his soul is nearby. Maybe there is still hope. If you delay any longer, it will really be hopeless." Tanis Ka's face turned pale, walked in big strides to Xiao Huan, pulled her up in a deep voice, said, "Xiao Huan, I tell you, don't be delusional. I know what you are thinking in your heart. That year you used your own ability to retrieve your Jean Pinger sister's soul, but I tell you, that time is different from now. I repeat again, this art is to be used on living people, and this kind of ghost way art greatly damages karma. That year you only saved Jean Pinger once, you have already lost 1 year of your life. Now if you act recklessly again, casting the art on this dead person, it is hard to say if you can succeed. You will at least destroy your cultivation foundation. Most likely your life will be shortened by more than 20 years. Have you thought it through? The last few words, Tanis Ka was almost roaring. Xiao Huan was also stunned. She was in the prime of her life. To say she was not afraid of death would be nonsense. Just that facing wild dog Taoist lying on the ground, no matter how hard she tried, but once she thought of the terrible consequences, she seemed to be out of breath. The atmosphere froze for a moment. After a moment, Tanis Ka softened his tone, gently said, Xiao Huan, fate is determined by heaven, nobody can change it. I think the heavens want Wild Dog to die today. We will bury him properly. It can be considered that we are doing him right, okay? Xiao Huan's expression fluctuated. At times a struggling expression flashed past. After a long time, she suddenly raised her head and said, Grandpa, his fate is not determined by heaven. Tanis Ka looked at Xiao Huan's expression. His heart sank. He laughed dryly and said, What? Xiao Huan took a long breath, resolutely said, Priest's fate is determined by himself. It was he himself who disregarded everything to rush to save us. That is why he unfortunately passed away. If he turned and left, which place in this world is not a place where he can settle down? The young girl's face was pale, somewhat sorrowful, quietly said, So, he died for us. Without him, we will also be long dead. How can we still talk about life here? She looked at Tanis Ka. For some reason, Tanis Ka looked away. Grandpa, I want to save him. No matter how dangerous this spell is, it can't be compared to what he encountered in order to save us, she said resolutely and decisively. Tanis Ka knew she had made up her mind, could not change. He could only look up to the sky and sighed. And that person in the darkness, right now his eyes were staring at Xiao Huan, glistening. In the forest, it was now deep into the night. Energy was flourishing. In the dim light, that strange spell slowly unfolded. The first drop of blood, dripped from the cut on Xiao Huan's fair arm, slowly fell beside Wild Dog Taoist, following which, Xiao Huan circled around Wild Dog Taoist, using her own blood, dripped beside Wild Dog Taoist. Her wrist slowly shook. The dripping blood on the ground slowly formed a strange pattern. Chapter 359. In the dense forest, as that blood pattern gradually formed, indistinct ghost cries started to be heard. Tanis Ka stood aside watching, the corner of his eyes twitching. And that black-attired man who had been watching for a long time in the shadows, suddenly frowned. This scene, he seemed to have seen it somewhere before. Great Shaman! That black-attired man involuntarily, his body trembled slightly. The blood formation that Xiao Huan was setting now was obviously similar to that day at Majestic Fox Mountain when the great shaman saved Bai Yao, but after Xiao Huan had made one round, the formation formed. That black-attired man could already tell. Xiao Huan's formation was different from that day by the great shaman. Not to mention the others, just the scale of the formation was much smaller. Maybe it used blood as the medium, and Xiao Huan herself cut her own veins to seek blood. Naturally it could not be compared to that day by the great shaman. Maybe it was also because of this reason, Xiao Huan's formation, the totem pattern was much simpler than that day by the great shaman, but even so, after one round, Xiao Huan was already tottering, her face pale. Tanis Ka, without a word, went up to support Xiao Huan. Xiao Huan was slightly weak, turned and smiled at him. Then slowly at the top of the formation, 3 chi in front of Wild Dog Taoist's head, sat down cross-legged. In the quiet dense forest, a ghost howl abruptly rang out. Instantly the entire forest was filled with strange howls. Energy blanketed the sky and earth and swept over. Gusts of wind blew from all directions. The surrounding trees swayed unsteadily. Behind the shadows of all the branches, there seemed to be numerous cold eyes watching here. Xiao Huan's face was solemn, slowly closed her eyes, a pair of fair hands clasped together in front of her chest, her mouth softly chanting a mysterious incantation. After a moment, her slender palms spread out at her chest, slowly put down, into the blood pool pattern before her. The blood pattern surrounding Wild Dog Taoist's body suddenly all brightened, all of the blood seemed to suddenly gain life, started to flow in the pattern. At the same time, Xiao Huan's originally pale face suddenly had some strange black energy. The Yin wind grew stronger and stronger, the entire dense forest right now seemed to darken, only this formation started to shine. The lively flowing blood was like the most delicious delicacy, attracting countless ghosts. Zhou Yixian's expression became more and more worried. He knew the danger of the soul taking strange art. Think about it, if an ordinary person wanted to snatch the soul from the netherworld, how dangerous would it be? But because of Xiao Huan's cultivation, she could only cast her spell within this dense forest area. The influence was barely considered big. Most likely it would not alert those powerful underworld protectors. If she was careless and was targeted, the consequences would be unthinkable. Just that looking at it now, it seemed that this kind of formation, Xiao Huan also felt a little overwhelmed, but the black gas on her face was getting heavier and heavier, her body also started to tremble. The method this time was different from when she saved Jean Pinger. Jean Pinger's soul did not dissipate completely. With this as a basis, it would be much easier to collect the remnant soul. That day when the great shaman saved Bai Yao at Majestic Fox Mountain, although the formation was much bigger, but it was also mostly because of the rare treasure, He Huan Bell, that he absorbed Bai Yao's remnant soul, and then using the unusual skill to travel to the 9 netherworld, forcibly collected the remnant soul. But it was also because of that, the great shaman first was like a dried-up oil lamp, secondly he also alerted the underworld protectors, suffered the backlash from the underworld ghost power, and finally died. And this time Xiao Huan with her shallow skills, using the most bizarre and profound strange art in the ghost way, and lacking the most crucial soul, the difficulty was just to find Wild Dog Taoist's soul among all the wandering souls in this dense forest, but the danger was already unimaginable. The 2 evil beasts had killed countless people here, and also countless souls lingering here, unable to be reincarnated. And Xiao Huan had set up this formation. It was clear that she wanted to take a soul and put it into this body. How could this not make all the spirits go crazy? For a moment the weather changed, innumerable faintly discernible black energy rushed towards Xiao Huan, the pain on Xiao Huan's face became heavier and heavier, her face was almost completely shrouded by the black energy. Looking at it, most likely Xiao Huan would not be able to hold on much longer, but for some reason, she still refused to give up. So many vengeful spirits circled around her, either wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves, or begging incessantly, or threatening ferociously. All of them, the world's pain and despair, all of the evil emotions, seemed to want to pierce into her brain, but Xiao Huan was still holding on bitterly, using her remaining spiritual power, searching in the endless sea. A vengeful spirit. This failure, most likely there would not be another chance. Tanis Yixian was already perspiring, but he dared not disturb Xiao Huan, could only wander around, sighing in despair. And that figure in the dark shadows, although the surroundings were thick with ghostly energy, but he seemed to not care at all. Instead, those ghostly energies seemed to be afraid of him, kept further away from him. Right now the black-attired man's eyes looked at Xiao Huan without blinking, involuntarily nodded. After a long time, a voice that only he could hear was heard, quietly said, "How is it possible? This young girl's talent in ghost way is so high. Under such circumstances she can still hold on bitterly. If she has a ghost way master to guide her, in time, that would be." In his voice, he also inexplicably showed some hesitation. And at this moment, Xiao Huan's face full of black energy, suddenly revealed a look of joy. Her right hand, which was immersed in the blood formation, suddenly stretched out, grabbed at the air and then hurriedly put it down, grabbed Wild Dog Taoist's right hand. Following which she also stretched out her left hand from the pool of blood. Similarly, when she grabbed the air, suddenly, the sky full of ghosts and spirits howled loudly, as if all of them had fallen into an uncontrollable rage, the ghostly energy dense like steel, In that instant the black energy shrouded over, completely surrounding Xiao Huan's body. Outside the formation, the trees within 3 zhangs suddenly withered, as if they could not endure this boundless vicious energy. Tanis Isian turned pale with fright, did not know what to do. Xiao Huan panted heavily. Several times she tried to put her left hand on Wild Dog Taoist's right hand, but the boundless black energy surrounded her. Ghost howls incessantly, gusts of wind blew, as if there was a great force that she could not press down. And Xiao Huan's face turned uglier and uglier, her body trembled, blood trickled down from the corner of her mouth. Seeing that the formation was about to be destroyed together, Tanis Isian in a panic was about to disregard everything and rush over to pull Xiao Huan away from the formation, although he did not know what the consequences would be, but it was always better to stay away from those ghosts. Unexpectedly, before he could move, suddenly a black figure blocked in front of him. Tanis Isian was shocked, looking at it now. This black-attired man seemed to be similar to the surrounding ghosts. That black-attired man's hoarse voice coldly said, "If you want your granddaughter to live, you better stand there obediently and don't move." After speaking, the black figure flashed. This black-attired man had already appeared around Xiao Huan and that strange formation, without any more words. His arms waved repeatedly, black objects kept flying out from his hands. Pluck, 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 broke through the ground, inserted around the formation. Those things looked black and seemed like iron, but they weren't. It was hard to tell what they were, but once these things were inserted into the soil of the spell formation, the blood in the spell formation seemed to be affected by some external force. The speed at which it flowed almost doubled, as if it was boiling. A red light shone from the formation, enveloped Xiao Huan. This layer of red light seemed to be especially effective against the surrounding ghosts and spirits. For a moment, the spirits all retreated. Under the red light, Xiao Huan's face quickly recovered. Her left hand, which was stretched out in the air, immediately pressed down, grabbed Wild Dog Taoist's left hand. At that moment when Xiao Huan grabbed Wild Dog Taoist's hand, a light cracking sound was heard. A dark red light started from Wild Dog Taoist's palm, like lightning extended downwards, in a blink covered Wild Dog Taoist's entire body, following which, Wild Dog Taoist's entire body lit up. The next moment, again dimmed down, returned to normal. At that moment, Xiao Huan struggled to open her eyes, stared intently at Wild Dog Taoist's head, suddenly tilted, slowly exhaled. Xiao Huan was overjoyed, her mind relaxed, her vision suddenly darkened, she had fainted. Chapter 360. Deep into the night. Wild Dog Taoist, who had already entered the gates of hell but was luckily pulled back, right now the few wounds on his body had already been bandaged. He still looked weak but lying on the ground. His breathing was weak but calm, temporarily his life was not in danger. And Xiao Huan, who had saved Wild Dog Taoist, right now was also unconscious, but she had only exhausted herself and was not seriously injured. This point was understood by the other two, who were conscious, and so they were not too worried. To Tanis Ka, right now what he was concerned about, or rather what he was on guard against, was the mysterious man who had just saved Xiao Huan. Right now, he had already recognized this mysterious man. He was not unfamiliar with him. Not long ago he had seen him. It was in Heyang City at the foot of Qin Yun Hill. That mysterious man in the morgue did not expect to meet him again today. Tanis Ka sat beside his granddaughter Xiao Huan. His eyes occasionally glanced at that black figure standing with his hands clasped behind. With his experience, naturally he knew that this person's cultivation in ghost way, this unorthodox skill was not to be underestimated, just that day he seemed to be an enemy and not a friend. Unexpectedly today the black-attired person would actually save Xiao Huan. The last time they met, luckily Ghostly helped and the three of them managed to escape. Right now the situation, although the black-attired man's intention was unknown, but the lives of the three of them were really in his hands. Tanis Ka secretly pondered, that black-attired man, who was Mr. Ghost, who had secretly followed Ghostly all the way to the south, looked confident standing aside, but inside he was also hesitating. This time saving a person, it was really against his usual style, just that the ghost way skill which he cultivated had always been a strange and vicious evil skill in the eyes of the common people, other than Taoism, Buddha, evil three great true ways sects and southern border shaman skills. It was unique. However, according to the secular world, even the evil sect which had always had a bad reputation, actually also looked down on the ghost way. For so many years, the ghost way people quietly continued in the dark. Mr. Ghost was able to receive evil sect Ghost King sect head Ghost King's courteous treatment, was an anomaly, and there was another reason. And because of that, although the ghost way with its unfathomable origin had continued till today, but the number of people was extremely small, nobody could say when it would end. Come to think of it, if it were a normal person, there wouldn't be many people who would think of cultivating this kind of strange magic that involved dealing with the gloomy ghost world all day long. Mr. Ghost had cultivated for many years, his skills were high, looking at the world, he was a top figure, in the ghost way, no one could compare to him. His character had always been unyielding, this was also the result of practicing ghost path skills. Unexpectedly this night he saw Xiao Huan, at such a young age, actually executed the ghost path profound collect soul skill. This was no small matter. Firstly, he was shocked that Xiao Huan, this young and beautiful girl, in the ghost path, seemed to have unbelievably high aptitude. Secondly, he was even more shocked, although this collect soul skill was a ghost path secret skill but it had long been lost for many years, even he as a ghost path great master, great expert, also did not know about it. But Xiao Huan actually executed it. How could he not be shaken to the core? When Xiao Huan forcefully collected the souls, although Mr. Ghost did not know the skill but with his attainments in the ghost way, his own foresight was even more unique. With one look he could tell that although Xiao Huan was gifted but it was after all too forceful, and indeed in a short while. Although Xiao Huan was unexpectedly able to capture Wild Dog Taoist's soul among the innumerable souls, but she had already infuriated the evil energy of the innumerable souls, and was attacked by the ghost energy. When she was about to lose her life, for some reason, Mr. Ghost could not sit idly by and finally still acted. Although he did not know the soul-keeping skill but to deal with these ordinary spirits, it was more than enough. Once he acted, he immediately activated the formation to protect Xiao Huan, and also allowed Xiao Huan's soul-keeping skill to be successful. However, after that, he started to hesitate, did not know what to do next. The atmosphere, for a moment, was that awkward, until after a long time, Xiao Huan's body moved, with great difficulty woke up, she softly called, "Grandpa," and then opened her eyes. Tanis Ka was overjoyed, quickly helped Xiao Huan up. Xiao Huan's face was exhausted, her body weak, but she looked fine. After calming herself, she immediately turned to look at Wild Dog Taoist. Wild Dog was lying on the ground, although heavily injured, but his breathing was steady. Clearly he had really come back to life. Xiao Huan then revealed a smile. Her eyes turned back, discovered another black-attired man around her, couldn't help but was stunned for a moment, and then she also recognized. This person was that mysterious black-attired man in Hyang City that day. Her body shrank back, said in shock, "Grandpa, why is he here too?" Tanis Ka helped Xiao Huan up, quietly said, "I also don't know why he suddenly came here, but just now at the critical moment when you were casting your spell, he was the one who saved you. That was why you and Wild Dog were safe." Xiao Huan heard Tanis Ka's words, immediately recalled, she was at the critical moment when she was casting her spell, after all her cultivation was not enough and was attacked by the spirits, when she was about to end up with 1,000 ghosts devouring her heart. The formation in her hands suddenly surged with mana, chased away all the spirits around her. Such a great spell. Seemed like it was all saved by this mysterious black-attired man. Thinking of that, Xiao Huan slowly nodded to Mr. Ghost, said, "Many thanks to this senior." Mr. Ghost seemed to turn a blind eye to Xiao Huan's gratitude, suddenly coldly asked, "Little girl, I have a few things want to ask you, hope you can answer me truthfully." Xiao Huan was surprised, at the same time felt Tanaska's hand that was supporting her gently pulled her, unconsciously hesitated for a moment, eventually still said, "Whatever Senior has, feel free to ask." Mr. Ghost nodded, said, "Ghost way skills have always been kept secret. Where did you learn this kind of ghost way skills?" Xiao Huan was stunned for a moment, said, "Ghost way, what ghost way?" Tanaska secretly sighed. Mr. Ghost in front was shocked, but looking at Xiao Huan's surprised expression, it did not seem to be fake. She really did not know this was the so-called ghost way skills. After a moment of silence, Mr. Ghost said, "The collect soul skill that you used just now is actually an extremely profound wondrous skill in ghost way, don't you know?" Xiao Huan shook her head in shock, said, I don't know." Mr. Ghost immediately asked, "Then from whom did you learn this collect soul skill?" Xiao Huan shook her head, said, "Nobody taught me." Mr. Ghost was surprised. Xiao Huan continued, "This collect soul skill is something I was mischievous when I was young, playing around in my grandfather's old house, lost my footing and fell into a dry well. I found this skill recorded on the walls of the well. I was still young at that time, learned it carelessly. After so many years, I have only used it once." "Why, Senior, you are very interested in this skill." Mr. Ghost was silent. After a long time, he heaved a long sigh. His voice sounded desolate, a sense of desolation. Xiao Huan and Tanaska looked at each other, did not know why this black-attired man suddenly became gloomy. After a moment, Mr. Ghost's hoarse voice was heard ahead. "Little girl, what is your name?" Tanaska frowned. Xiao Huan had already answered, said, "I am Xiao Huan." Mr. Ghost nodded, said, "I have something to speak to you alone, can you walk over?" Tanaska frowned, clearly unwilling to let Xiao Huan stay together with this ghostly person. Instead, Xiao Huan did not think so much, recalling that this person had just saved her life, nodded and said, "All right," after speaking, ignoring Tanaska's secret attempts to stop, walked over. Mr. Ghost watched Xiao Huan walk over, slowly nodded, seemed to approve of this young girl, until Xiao Huan came closer. He slowly, as if he was carefully considering something in his heart, quietly said, "Are you willing to learn this ghost way skill?" Xiao Huan was stunned, for a moment speechless, but behind Mr. Ghost's black veil, a pair of bright eyes, clearly he was not joking, unconsciously hesitated. What kind of experience was Mr. Ghost? Carefully looked at Xiao Huan's expression, guessed her thoughts, did not force her, only said, "Just now when you were casting the skill, facing countless spirits, how did you feel?" Xiao Huan's face blushed, and then turned pale, quietly said, I was a little afraid." Mr. Ghost indifferently said, "It is not a shameful thing for you to be afraid. The world is ignorant. Most fear ghosts and spirits, but they do not know that ghosts and spirits are only a kind of after death and before reincarnation. What people fear, most of it is only the demons in their hearts." He pointed at Xiao Huan, said, "Using you for example, just now when you were casting the skill, your heart was afraid, although you were still able to cast the skill, but there must be countless of illusions before you, all kinds of ferocious scenes, right?" Xiao Huan nodded repeatedly, said, "Yes." Mr. Ghost snorted, said, "Actually the so-called ghost way, the most important thing is to control the demons in your heart. You are calm, all the spirits will not be able to affect your mind. And think carefully, the reason why those spirits were enraged and counterattacked looked extremely evil and violent, but they are just like the countless people in this world. Once they see a chance to escape, to regain their life, how can they not go crazy?" He clasped his hands behind and sneered. "The people of the world denounce the ferociousness of the spirits, but they do not know that they are also the same. Isn't it ridiculous?" Xiao Huan looked pensive, slowly nodded. Mr. Ghost continued, "I know what you are thinking. You detest the reputation of Ghost Way, but you used Ghost Way skills just now and saved that wild dog's life. It can be seen that Ghost Way is not completely useless. Today I saw that you actually have a rare talent in Ghost Way. I really can't bear to miss it, so I am willing to teach you." Speaking until here, he smiled faintly and said, As for what will happen in the future, even if you find out how evil my actions are and want to kill me, it doesn't matter. We Ghost Way people, towards these common customs, it is like dog fart. Xiao Huan was startled and took a step back. Mr. Ghost was silent for a moment. His eyes looked at Xiao Huan again. Xiao Huan looked extremely hesitant, her delicate and pretty face frowning from time to time. Mr. Ghost did not speak much, stretched out his hand and took out a thick black wordless book and threw it to Xiao Huan. Xiao Huan subconsciously caught it, looked at him in shock. Mr. Ghost indifferently said, "What is recorded in this book is some of my understanding of Ghost Way for half my life, many of the skills and weapon refining skills. I believe there is no one in the world who can be compared to me. Whether you learn it or not, it is up to you." After speaking, he turned and was about to leave. Xiao Huan looked at his back, subconsciously called out, "Senior, wait." Mr. Ghost paused, stopped, said, "What is it?" Xiao Huan was stunned for a moment. After a long time she said, I still don't know Senior's name?" With his back facing her, Mr. Ghost did not move. After a long time he faintly said, "I am teaching you skills, not for you to remember me, you better behave yourself." After speaking, he stood up and was about to move forward again. Xiao Huan's expression turned anxious, suddenly loudly said, This. You saved my life and also taught me skills. I have to call you teacher, right?" Mr. Ghost's body shook greatly, as if the young and delicate lady's words, to him, was even more intense than being struck by 5 thunders. However, his cultivation was extremely profound, so he quickly regained his composure and slowly turned around. His face was covered by a black veil, so no one could see his expression. However, from his sparkling eyes, anyone could tell that he was not in a normal mood at the moment. "You called me teacher?" Xiao Huan blushed, instead felt embarrassed, stammered, This is what I thought of myself. If Senior, you are not willing, Mr. Ghost suddenly interrupted. "All right, don't say any more." Xiao Huan was surprised, looked up. Mr. Ghost looked deeply at Xiao Huan, nodded his head, again took out something from his bosom, handed it to Xiao Huan, said, "Seeing that you have called me teacher, this is for you." Xiao Huan looked down, saw a stack of 7 black triangular-shaped things, each cun.5 large, the edges smooth, the material could not be seen, like iron but not iron. Xiao Huan hesitated for a moment, looked at Mr. Ghost, saw that his eyes were rather gentle, stretched out her hand to receive it. Looking carefully, at the top of these triangular pieces, there was a small hole. In the hole was a dark red silk rope tied together. On each triangular piece, both sides had different dark red mysterious patterns, some like raging flames burning, some like ferocious beasts roaring, all different. Receiving it, she felt cold to the touch. At the same time it contained a faint smell of blood. Tanis Ka's eyes were sharp. He could tell that these triangular pieces were what Mr. Ghost used to save Xiao Huan. Mr. Ghost indifferently said, "This thing is called Blood Jade Bone Piece. It is a treasure in the Ghost Way, has the special effect of activating Ghost Way strange skills. The original level 5 skills, with this magical weapon, can at least unleash 70%, if the talent is better, it can even unleash 10%. Xiao Huan was surprised and delighted, nodded repeatedly. Tanis Ka instead shook his head vigorously. Mr. Ghost stared at Xiao Huan for a long time, suddenly shook his head and sighed, quietly said, "Me and you including tonight, we have only met twice to think. Never mind, this is also fate. In the future when your cultivation is successful, if there is an opportunity." He looked up at the sky, said, "Help me save someone." Xiao Huan was surprised, said, "Save someone, who?" Mr. Ghost silently shook his head, with a bitter laugh, said, "Let's talk about it in the future." Speaking, he abruptly turned, as if he did not want to stay any longer. His black figure, like a ghost, instantly shot out, in a blink disappeared into the dense forest shadows. Xiao Huan could not call out in time. Just when she opened her mouth, she could not see that black figure. For some reason, that black-attired person gave her a faint sense of familiarity. Xiao Huan sighed, clutched the blood jade bone piece tightly in her hand. Tanis Ka snorted, walked up, took the blood jade bone piece from Xiao Huan's hand and looked at it carefully. Turning it over, Xiao Huan, puzzled, said, "Grandpa, what is it?" Tanis Ka sneered, said, "You have a good teacher. Do you know what this thing is made of?" Xiao Huan was surprised, said, "What is it?" Tanis Ka said, "This ghost is refined from the skull fragments of a person with extreme een, not knowing how many living souls were added into it, to have such effect." Tawny was stunned for a moment, took a look, but could not tell that it was a human bone, more like a jade stone, couldn't help but rolled her eyes at Tanis Ka, said, "Grandpa, is it real? How does this look like a human bone?" Tanis Ka was furious, said, "You found that guy who looks like a ghost and not a human to be your teacher, you don't believe me?" Xiao Huan stuck out her tongue, kept the blood jade bone piece, smiled and said, "All right, Grandpa, anyway I will only use this to do good things and not bad things, isn't it?" Tanis Ka snorted, turned and walked away. His mouth still said, "It would be weird if I believe you." Xiao Huan giggled, extremely coquettish, followed. Chapter 361. Here Tanis Ka, the three of them rested and treated Wild Dog. After Wild Dog knew that his life was spared, he felt even more fortunate. Privately he was perplexed by his unexpected bravery. But no matter what, after this, Tanis Ka, Xiao Huan and Wild Dog Taoist's relationship became a level closer. After all they had been through life and death together, Tanis Ka was not as cold to Wild Dog Taoist as before. Just that when he was ordered to do work, it was still the same as before, but Wild Dog Taoist was after all seriously injured. Most of the time it was Tanis Ka who did the work, which again made him grumble. Xiao Huan and Wild Dog were still the same as before, just that in front of Xiao Huan, Wild Dog Taoist seemed to be more fearful, spoke less to Xiao Huan than before. Xiao Huan although felt it strange, but she did not feel it. In this period of time, more of her attention was attracted to that ordinary-looking black book. Wild Dog Taoist had never seen Xiao Huan reading this book before, felt it was strange, but Xiao Huan had never spoken about the origins of this book. Zhou Yixian also did not elaborate. After a long time, he himself also slowly got used to it, only that occasionally he felt Xiao Huan's expression seemed to gradually change, but what was different from before, he could not tell. The demon beast catastrophe started from the southern border. 10,000 great mountains. The first to suffer was the southern border. The various tribes here suffered from the demon beast's torment, compared to the central plains, was far more severe. 9 out of 10 houses were empty, was almost the inevitable outcome for many villages and towns. Even if the entire village had no survivors, it would still appear from time to time. After the catastrophe, the remaining small groups of demonic beasts in the southern border were also much more than those in the central plains. Those who survived the catastrophe often had to endure the ravages and harassment of the remaining demonic beasts. This life was really dark without daylight, like an abyss of fire and water. Ghostly was in such a situation, once again set foot on the southern border. Along the way, he did not find any traces of the beast deity. Instead, numerous good faction people swarmed over. Among them were Qin Yun, Fen Xiang, etc. famous sections. Many of them seemed to have gone mad, one after another searching for the beast deity, but very obviously, many of them had been searching but no one could find him. After the defeat of Qin Yun, the heavily injured beast deity seemed to have disappeared into thin air, and no one could find him anymore. But this southern border 100,000 great mountains was his old residence. No matter what, he would come back, right? With this thought, Ghostly entered the southern border. Coming with him, there were also numerous good faction disciples. Among them Fenxiang Valley could be considered to have returned home. After all, Fenxiang Valley was in the southern border, but the other good faction disciples' purpose naturally would not only be to help the southern border commoners eliminate those remaining small groups of demon beasts. But no matter what, because of the arrival of these people, the originally unscrupulous remaining beasts temporarily restrained themselves, after all these good faction disciples under the circumstances where it was within their power, would also eliminate these beasts. In this way the atmosphere in the southern border was boosted. But no matter who it was, no one was able to find the shadow of the beast deity in the southern border. Now the only possibility was that barren mountains and unruly rivers, the strange and mysterious 10,000 great mountains. Who knew how many secrets were hidden in the layers of black mountains? Before Ghostly entered the mountains, he first went to the southern border Miao tribe's 7-mile cave, not for anything else, just because of what the great shaman had done for Baiyao that day. He also wanted to pay his respects. Tianshui Stockade, 7-mile cave. Along the way, the original bustling scenes were all gone, tragic scenes along the way. Even his heart, which he thought had already hardened, could not help but be moved. What was it for, that there would be such a calamity tormenting the common people? He himself had achieved his cultivation and stayed out of this huge wave of evil tide, but what about the countless commoners suffering in the world? What mistake did they commit? Why did they have to endure such a calamity? Recalling back to Tian Temple, countless commoners prayed to the deities day and night. Looking at the world, there were even more commoners doing the same, prostrating themselves in worship to the heavenly deities. But when the calamity befell them, who helped them? Then, was there any use in this kind of worship? Or was it really responding to that mysterious sentence in Tian Shu, heaven and earth heartless, treating all living things as straw dogs? Stepping into the 7-mile cave, Ghostly sucked in a breath of cold air. This once picturesque place, in his impression, had already been destroyed beyond recognition. The houses, which were originally contiguous, almost all were left with broken fences and walls. The bustling crowds could not be seen on the streets, not to mention those children running and playing. The remaining commoners looked to be only 1 or 2 out of 10. Most of them were in front of the dilapidated houses, desperately and strenuously packing something, trying to find something useful from the ruins. However, what they could find were the remains of the dead. The entire 7-mile cave, pervaded with a sorrowful and decadent atmosphere, occasionally a few children, also stood there blankly, their eyes filled with bewilderment and fear, and after a while, an adult would come out from behind and pull them back in again. Ghostly walked slowly along the street, very quickly attracted some of the Miao people's attention. In their eyes, immediately a strong sense of wariness. In the strange atmosphere, even Xiao Hui on Ghostly's shoulder seemed to be much more well-behaved, although it was still looking around. Ghostly secretly sighed, did not wish to look any more, quickened his steps, walked straight to that altar on the hill deep in the 7-mile cave. The further in he went, the more clearly the houses and roads, the more dilapidated they became. Ghostly was silent, seemed to vaguely see the day when the calamity struck. The many Miao warriors, in order to protect the holy place, faced the ferocious demon beasts, fought to the death. Even in the air, there seemed to be a faint stench of blood. At the foot of the mountain, 2 young Miao soldiers stopped him. Ghostly quietly stopped, looked at them, these 2 men, holding long spears, wearing armors, but they were only 15 or 16 years of age. Even the armors on their bodies seemed bigger than their bodies, not knowing if it was left behind by the brave warriors. "Gulu Ji who?" one of them asked in Miao language. Ghostly did not understand but more or less guessed what he would ask, so he did not speak, only raised his head and motioned to look halfway up the mountain. He did not use his fingers because he still remembered the Miao people regarded this action as a great disrespect. The 2 youths were stunned for a moment, looked at each other, and then one of them seemed to be slightly older, shook his head. Both of them did not move aside. Ghostly felt slightly anxious, but he really did not wish to fight with the great shaman tribe members who had once helped him, and looking at the tragic scene in the 7-mile cave, he was also unable to do anything. He was silent for a long time. When the hostility in the 2 youths' eyes grew heavier, he sighed, turned around and was about to leave. He had only taken a few steps when suddenly a commotion was heard from the mountain. he turned his head and looked. A moment later a person ran down from the mountainside, first spoke a few words to the two youths in Miao language. The two youths nodded repeatedly, stood aside, and then, this person who looked to be around 40 years of age, used some broken Central Plains language to speak to Ghostly. "You. Good, great. Shaman invites you up." Ghostly was shocked, frowned and said, "Great Shaman?" That person nodded repeatedly. Ghostly inhaled a deep breath, nodded his head and followed that person up the mountain slope. That cave was still in its original position, but the building and stone platform at the cave entrance were already beyond recognition, rubble shattered, rolled all over the ground. Among the rubble, a young Miao person, looked to be only around 30 years of age, dressed in a great shaman robe, smiling as he watched Ghostly walking over. His eyes glowed faintly, as if there was a passionate flame burning in it, completely different from those Miao people at the foot of the mountain. Ghostly walked up to him. That young man smiled, used extremely fluent Central Plains language, and said, "Hello, Mr. Ghostly. I am the Southern Border Miao tribe's new generation great shaman. I have long heard of your great name." Ghostly was stunned for a moment, nodded to return the greeting. Before he could speak, that young great shaman already smiled and said, "Please come in. I will bring you to see the previous great shaman." After speaking, he led the way, walked into that still dimly lit cave. Ghostly followed behind him, also slowly blended into the darkness. The cave was still as dark. The young great shaman's figure swayed slightly ahead. For some reason, Ghostly felt that he looked familiar. After carefully recalling, he then remembered that the last time he came here, the great shaman had called out for this young man. He did not expect that after such a short period of time, he had already taken over the position of the great shaman. Just like the last time, this young great shaman brought Ghostly to the deep part of the cave where the dog deity was worshipped. The huge fire was still burning, making crackling sounds, but that withered old figure was nowhere to be seen. The young man walked up, respectfully bowed to the dog deity statue, and then from the dog deity statue's mouth, took out a wooden box, respectfully placed it on the ground and then said to Ghostly, "Our Miao people's custom, after the death of the great shaman, we have to worship under the dog deity statue for a year. This is his ashes." Ghostly was silent, looked at that small wooden box. The entire box was plain and unadorned, without any decorations. Even the wood used was the most common trees in the southern border. The great shaman, like numerous Miao people, peacefully slept here. Ghostly bent down, bowed deeply. The monkey Xiao Hui with a sound, jumped down from his body, ran to one side. That young great shaman, according to the Central Plains custom, similarly bowed to return the greeting, and then carefully lifted that plain wooden box, once again placed it into the dog deity statue's mouth. The two of them sat on the ground beside the fire, the firelight reflected in their eyes, extremely bright in the darkness. Without waiting for Ghostly to ask, the young man had already faintly said, "I am his disciple when he was still alive, and after the terrible calamity, all the senior priests here died, so I inherited the great shaman's position." Ghostly silently nodded. His eyes unexpectedly looked at the dog deity statue, unhurriedly said, "The great shaman can be considered to have died for me. Every time I think about it, I feel uneasy." That young great shaman bowed slightly, said, "You are wrong. Teacher had long told me, his life is up. Even if he does not go to the Central Plains, only death awaits him. Instead, your esteemed sect is able to send Teacher's ashes back. It is already our entire Miao people's great fortune." Ghostly sighed, quietly said, "These things are also done by other people. It has nothing to do with me." The young great shaman smiled, clearly not bothered by Ghostly's words, said, "But this time you have come to our 7-mile cave. I do not know for what reason?" Ghostly said, "Actually not for anything else, just to pay my respects to the great shaman senior. Other than that, the calamity this time is so severe. Regarding that main culprit, the beast deity, I have the intention to pursue. I wonder if you have any clues?" The young great shaman's countenance changed slightly. Obviously to him, The beast deity. These two words were still an extremely terrifying and taboo word. He quickly quietened down. After a long while, Ghostly indifferently said, "You don't have to mind, countless people in the world want to find him but also failed. It is normal that you do not know. I have disturbed you here. I will take my leave first." Chapter 362. After speaking, he was about to get up. That young shaman looked hesitant, suddenly said, "You want to track that beast deity, is it true?" Ghostly said, "Yes." The young shaman stared at him, said, "You can kill him?" Ghostly was silent for a long time, said, "I have no confidence." The young shaman pondered for a moment, said, "Since it is so, I will tell you what I know. How to find the beast deity, I don't know, but in my tribe's ancient legend, this beast deity is a demon-like monster, cannot be killed, only like the shaman goddess 10,000 years ago to suppress and seal him. If you want to suppress him, you need to seize the 5 divine weapons of our southern border clans from his body. Those 5 divine weapons are the source of the beast deity's life. If lost, the beast deity will definitely fall into a deep sleep. Other than that, there is another important point. That day when the beast deity was wreaking havoc, its demonic power was strong and invincible. Luckily, the shaman goddess used the strange formation passed down by the shaman tribe, 8 Savage Inferno formation, to trap it. If you can find this formation, maybe. Ghostly slowly nodded. The young shaman thought for a moment and said, "How to find the beast deity? I really can't think of it, but in the tribe legend, when the shaman goddess suppressed and sealed the beast deity, it was in the depths of the 10,000 Great Mountains, a place called Subdued Devil Ancient Cave. And it was said that the goddess herself also turned into a stone statue, facing the depths of the ancient cave. Maybe, if you find such a place, there will be traces of the beast deity." Ghostly memorized all of it, nodded to this young shaman, said, "Many thanks." The great shaman smiled, did not speak. When the two of them walked out of the cave, Ghostly could not help but asked him, why was there no sorrow in his eyes? That young shaman paused, faintly said, "If I continue to be depressed and sorrowful, those people in the 7-mile cave, what will happen? It is not that I am not sorrowful, it is that I cannot be sorrowful." Ghostly listened, was silent for a long time, then bade his farewell. After leaving the 7-mile cave, Ghostly did not hurry on his journey. He walked slowly, recalling what that young shaman had said over and over again. That strange 8 Savage Inferno formation made him involuntarily think of another person, Xiao Bai. That day she angrily left, and since then there was no news of her. Although with her skills and powers, she did not need to worry much, but recalling that Xiao Bai's motive was most likely to find that 8 Savage Inferno formation, Ghostly more or less felt guilty. The sinister orb's demonic power had troubled him for many years, but some time ago, under the wordless jade wall at Mt. Shumi Tian Temple, he comprehended the 4 volumes of Tian Shu and combined the sinister orb's demonic power with the Buddhist, Taoist and evil 3 families' true ways, even with the Inferno Mirror's pure yang power. Indistinctly he had already peeked at the door of the 10,000 skills, returning to the origin, the sinister orb's demonic power to him, along with his cultivation progressing day by day. It was no longer a life-threatening obstacle. Just that, for some reason, following the enlightenment under the wordless jade wall, he gradually thought of many things. Things that he could not think of in the past were gradually seen in his recollection. Xiao Bai treated him like that. Most likely it was not because of the relationship between Bai Yao and herself, right? She alone returned to southern border to search for the formation when the demon beast calamity was at its peak. The heaven and earth were vast, and now there was no news of her at all. Ghostly felt an inexplicable pain in his heart, just that the heaven and earth were vast. He really did not know where to start searching. Ghostly pondered for a long time, finally decided to secretly head to Funxiang Valley, for no other reason. Firstly, he heard Xiao Bai said that the 8 Savage Inferno formation had once appeared in Funxiang Valley Inferno Altar. Since it was so, Xiao Bai would most likely go there to find this formation, and even if she was not there, It would also be good for him to go and take a look. With a decision, Ghostly headed towards Funxiang Valley. Funxiang Valley was originally one of the three great good faction sects, just that in this catastrophe it was the first to bear the brunt, just happened to be at the exit where the demon beasts wreaked havoc. The outcome could be imagined. And fortunately that day Funxiang Valley Master Yun Elan led the disciples to Central Plains first, joined hands with Qing Yun's sect and other good faction to deal with the demon beasts. Therefore, although Funxiang Valley was in a complete mess, but Funxiang Valley disciples did not suffer any serious injuries. Just that a dignified good faction big sect ended up like this, inevitably it made them lose face, and after the catastrophe, many rumors and slanderous remarks were spread, implying that Funxiang Valley people were cowardly. As a good faction big sect, they did not dare to face the calamity alone, and instead hid behind Qing Yun's sect. Now Qing Yun's sect and Reverend Daoxian in the hearts of the world's good faction were really supreme, their reputations flourishing. Compared to them, Funxiang Valley and the rest were really too inferior. Following the large number of good faction disciples entering the southern border to search for the beast deity, Funxiang Valley disciples naturally would not fall behind, but when they met, Funxiang Valley disciples had already lost their usual arrogance. Just that even so, Funxiang Valley was after all a famous sect. In addition, their strength was still there, although there were many rumors, but no one dared to humiliate Funxiang Valley. As for Funxiang Valley itself, that valley was really a mess. At least when Ghostly sneaked in, what he saw was so. The originally quiet and beautiful valley, right now was filled with an unpleasant burnt stench and fishy smell. Numerous Funxiang Valley disciples were moving all kinds of rotting rubbish and bones. Among them there were human and also animal corpses. Ghostly secretly observed. After pondering for a moment, he understood. That day when he sneaked into Funxiang Valley in the middle of the night, he was still discovered by Funxiang Valley, not because all the disciples were highly skilled, but because they were experts in rearing many strange animals. It was impossible to guard against them. Just that Yun Elan could bring most of the disciples to the Central Plains but could not bring these animals along, and when the calamity came, when the ferocious demonic beasts tide passed by, many of these animals naturally would not be spared. After a long time, the corpses decayed, the stench became even more unbearable. But right now, without these strange animals, it was beneficial to Ghostly. At least he was not afraid that in the corners of the houses, in the dark corners, some strange creatures would suddenly appear and alarm him, exposing him. Funxiang Valley had many disciples, but half of them were sent out to track the whereabouts of the demon beasts, what countless good faction sects wanted to do. How could Funxiang Valley not want to do it? And the remaining half of the disciples, most of them were in the valley doing the work of tidying up the rubbish and ruins, even if there were some elders and seniors in the valley. But for people like Yun Elan, Shangguan Su, naturally they could not patrol the valley all the time. Therefore Ghostly almost did not meet with any difficulty, sneaked into Funxiang Valley. Right now it was evening. Compared to the last time he came to Funxiang Valley, it was much brighter, but sneaking in was many times easier. After Ghostly sneaked into Funxiang Valley, he did not think too much, headed straight for Funxiang Valley's Inferno Altar. That day Xiao Bai was imprisoned here. That 8 savage Inferno formation was also set up here. Naturally he had to come here to search. Just that this was after all Funxiang Valley restricted area. In such a chaotic situation, the Inferno Altar's security seemed to be even tighter than the last time Ghostly came, not knowing if it was because of Xiao Bai's escape, outsiders sneaking in. Just that Ghostly's current level of cultivation could not be compared to the past, although Funxiang Valley was heavily guarded in the Inferno Altar, but Ghostly carefully sneaked in, finally without anyone noticing, entered the majestic Inferno Altar. As he expected, although the security outside was tight but inside the Inferno Altar was not guarded, at a glance, this place seemed to be the same as the last time he came. The ground still had that strange dark red formation, deeply engraved on the ground. Ghostly understood, this was the legendary mysterious 8 savage Inferno formation. but the lava eruption caused by Ghostly and Xiao Bai's escape, the damage caused could still be seen. The surrounding walls were charred black by the lava splashes, the number of collapsed stones were even more uncountable, even the 8 savage inferno formation on the ground. Some places could be seen to be slightly deformed by that blazing fire. But if it was an ordinary place, most likely it would have been destroyed under that kind of disaster. The surrounding area was still mostly intact. It seemed like this formation had unleashed a miraculous effect, that was why it was preserved. Looking up, the second and third levels that imprisoned Xiao Bai, the mechanisms had already lost their effectiveness, opened like that, revealing the empty, eerie dark cave entrance. In the entire majestic inferno altar, under the faint firelight, only Ghostly's figure gently flashed. Ghostly was silent for a long time, shook his head, walked to the 8 savage inferno formation. Looking carefully, in that huge formation, all the ferocious deities were still the same as in his memory, carved clearly, vivid and lifelike, and the patterns that connected these ferocious deities were equally strange and complicated. Ghostly inhaled deeply, sat down cross-legged in front of the formation. Just when he was about to meditate and comprehend this legendary and strange shaman tribe formation, suddenly, in this silent and sinister inferno altar, in the darkness above him, a clear and reverberating laughter of a lady was heard. Ghostly's countenance changed greatly, abruptly stood up, looked up and blurted out, "Is it you, Xiao Bai?" His voice stopped abruptly. A figure floated down from the dark shadows above, the once familiar light yellow clothes, bright and gentle eyes, a beauty that seemed to intoxicate one with one look. It was someone he could never even dream of, the girl who was rumored to have died in the calamity, Jean Pinger. After the initial shock, Ghostly quickly calmed down. Jean Pinger was still standing there, as if nothing had changed. Her clothes, her face and her expression, even the corners of her mouth, still carried that faint and infinitely charming smile. She looked at Ghostly, smiled and said, "How are you?" Ghostly quietly looked at her. After a long time he said, "Why are you here?" Jean Pinger used her hand to gently brush her hair. In this small action, there seemed to be infinite flirtatiousness. Gently said, "I am waiting for you here." Ghostly frowned, said, "Waiting for me? To do what? And how did you know that I would come here?" Jean Pinger smiled and said, "Don't tell me you have already forgotten. The last time you came here, you came with me, heard that this time you want to track the beast deity, with the southern border legend, to suppress and seal the beast deity. Naturally this formation is unavoidable. If you don't come here, where else can you go?" She slightly squinted her eyes, seemed a little pleased, and even more unspeakably charming, smiled and said, "You see, I am smart, right?" Ghostly frowned, felt that even after his skills had improved greatly, under Jean Pinger's bewitchment, he still felt a little shaken, couldn't help but be secretly alarmed. After the calamity, this girl who was rumored to be dead, instead seemed to have advanced a level of skills. Since she was not dead, then what about the others? Those other evil sect experts who were annihilated in the calamity? Could it be that they too did not die? Ghostly was bewildered, but his face was still cold and said, "You have not answered me. What are you waiting for me for?" Jean Pinger smiled gently, her indifferent tone of voice yet said soul-stirring words. "I know the location of the subdued devil ancient cave where the beast deity is sealed. After Ghost King sect leader knew about it, he let me come and assist you." Ghostly's body shook greatly. He abruptly lifted his head, looked at Jean Pinger, only to see Jean Pinger's eyes like water, her smile like a flower, without the slightest unusual expression. Chapter 363. Ghostly stared at Jean Pinger for a long time, frowned slightly but did not speak. And Jean Pinger, under Ghostly's indistinct sharp gaze, acted as if nothing had happened, did not feel that what she had said at this moment was inappropriate, smiled at Ghostly. In the inferno altar, it quietened down. Xiao Hui, who was crouching on Ghostly's shoulder, did not seem to like the atmosphere, moved its body, called out twice, jumped down from its master's shoulder, Its head looked around for a while and then walked to the side, slowly walked to the middle of the Inferno altar where innumerable red ferocious deities were engraved. Ghostly slowly looked away, looked at Xiao Hui who was making faces at the ferocious deities' engravings, slowly said, "So that means you know a lot?" Jean Pinger smiled. That smile was as warm as the spring breeze, gently brushed past this cold hall, said, "I am just a weak little girl, how would I know anything? Just that I was fortunate enough to go to a few places and was valued by Ghost King's sect head, that's why I came to help you." She pursed her lips and smiled, said, "Don't think too much." Ghostly frowned and did not speak, ignored the indistinct seductiveness in Jean Pinger's coquettish voice. After thinking for a while, he seemed to have suddenly forgotten why Jean Pinger would suddenly appear here, and also forgot about the mysterious strangeness shrouding Jean Pinger and even Ghost King, only indifferently said, "Since it is so, I will have to seek guidance from you." A glint flashed in Jean Pinger's eyes, but her smile was still bewitching, said, "Gong Zi, please speak." Ghostly said, "Seems like you have reached here before me, like what you said, to seal the beast deity. One must obtain the 8 savage inferno formation here, just that my intellect is slow-witted and could not comprehend it. I wonder if Miss Jean has any enlightenment?" Jean Pinger shook her head, a bitter smile seemed to appear on her face, said, "To tell you the truth, actually I have already been here for 3 days but I did not find anything, other than these messy engravings on the ground, I did not find anything." Ghost Li's gaze involuntarily looked at the dark red pattern beneath his feet. Different from Jean Pinger, including Xiao Hui, he had personally experienced the power of that strange formation in this inferno altar, that mountain-toppling and sea-overturning power, and that terrible crimson flame giant beast, were all memories that could not be easily forgotten. Perhaps it was because of this. That was why Xiao Hui was so interested in the ground, scratching here, moving there, seemed to be searching for something? Could it be that after the earth-shattering change that day, the eruption of lava from the volcano had actually destroyed the formation here? Such a thought flashed past Ghost Li's mind, but he did not reveal it. After a moment of thought, he again looked at Jean Pinger, said, "Miss Jean, no matter what, this is the only place that we know of with the 8 savage inferno formation, since it is indispensable for the sealing of the beast deity. Then why don't we stay here for a few more days? Maybe there is a little hope." Jean Pinger smiled sweetly and said, "Sure." Ghostly glanced at her and then looked away, once again sat down in front of the formation. Not long after, a delicate fragrance drifted over, clothes fluttered. It was Jean Pinger who sat down not far from him, and the distance between them seemed to be a little closer. Ghostly frowned, wanted to speak but stopped. He did not look at the beauties beside him, only focused his attention on this carving, just that for some reason, in his heart, suddenly another thought came to his mind. That day Xiao Bai said she was going to southern border to search for the incantation for the 8 savage inferno formation, but there was no news of her for a long time, not knowing how she was now. And in the entire world, only this place seemed to have clues to the 8 savage inferno formation, but Xiao Bai was obviously not here. Then, where would she be now? Was she still well? This faintly discernible thought, in the next few days, flashed past Ghost Li's mind from time to time. It seemed like the lava eruption that day. The damage it caused was beyond Ghost Li's expectations, even though the ferocious deity stone carvings seemed to be in good condition, but it was obvious that they no longer contained that spiritual energy, or should it be said that powerful evil energy. What was left now was just a bunch of dull stone carvings. Ghostly and Jean Pinger secretly studied together in the Inferno altar for a full 7 days, but still did not find anything. In the meantime, Fenxiang Valley disciples would come in to check, and a few times even Shangguansu personally brought people over for routine patrol, but the current Ghostly, including Jean Pinger, had already advanced. They only needed to hide in the shadows above the Inferno altar, and easily avoided these searches. Just that they still could not understand the gist of the formation was a really troublesome matter. This day, the two of them again sat in front of these rigid stone engravings for the entire morning. Suddenly, Jean Pinger stretched her waist. Her slender waist looked like an enchanting snake, with an innate alluring taste. But the only man beside her was still staring intently at the stone engravings, deep in thought, did not notice Jean Pinger's graceful performance. Jean Pinger lightly snorted, stared at Ghostly. A trace of complicated emotions seemed to flash past her eyes, but it was only for a moment. After a moment, she was heard sighing, said, "Did you see anything?" Ghostly's body moved, then slowly regained his senses, turned and glanced at Jean Pinger, shook his head, said, "What about you?" Jean Pinger bitterly laughed, did not answer, but Ghostly already understood. Jean Pinger frowned and said, "We have already been here looking at these damn things for 7 days. In these 7 days, we tried our best, but not to mention activating this formation, we could not even touch some of the stone engravings. What exactly is going on?" Ghostly pondered for a moment, looked up at the darkness above, said, "That day when I was here to save people, I touched the mechanism in this hall, and this 8 Savage Inferno formation was immediately activated. But—" His eyes glanced towards the middle of the hall, his tone strange, said, "But that mechanism is now gone." Jean Pinger followed his gaze and indeed saw a small protruding stone platform in the middle of the hall, but the stones there were charred black, solidified into an ugly shape. How did it look like some ingenious mechanism? In fact, the moment Ghostly arrived and saw this scene, he knew that the strange stone mechanism he saw the first time he came here was already destroyed, and the last time when he saw those ferocious deities' stone engravings on the ground, the violent energy that resonated in his heart, this time, he could not feel it at all. The once terrifying stone carvings now looked lifeless and lifeless. Both of them fell into silence, not knowing what to say. After a long time, Jean Pinger seemed to have thought of something, raised her head and was about to speak. Suddenly her countenance changed and Ghostly's brows were already frowning. He suddenly turned and in a blink, he was beside Xiao Hui, who was playing at the side, carried the monkey up and then floated up. The next moment, he had already disappeared into the darkness above the Inferno altar hall. Jean Pinger watched his figure disappear into the darkness, smiled and then also floated up, also disappeared into the darkness. The next moment, a dull sound reverberated in the Inferno altar hall. The door was opened, footsteps were heard, it sounded like there were quite a number of people. Indistinctly a dignified voice was heard. After a few words, it immediately quietened down. Following which, from the open door, 3 people walked in. The one in front was Funxiang Valley Master Yun Ilan. Half a body behind him on the right was his junior brother Shangguan Su, and the last person, a few steps away from the 2 in front, was Yun Ilan's favorite disciple Li Sun. After the 3 of them entered the Inferno altar, Li Sun, who was at the back, turned and closed the heavy door. The original light was immediately cut off from the outside. Only that trace of darkness slowly flickered here. Having lost the formation's spiritual power, the 3 levels above the altar had long lost that bitter chill. What remained was only the coldness of the huge and hard rocks. In the darkness, Ghostly and Jean Pinger quietly passed through that dark hole, looked down in the darkness. As if it knew that this time it would not be the same as before, Xiao Hui, who was always active, also quietened down, obediently crouched beside its master. Yun Ilan and Shangguan Su unhurriedly walked to the middle of the Inferno altar, stood on the 8 Savage Inferno formation, looking from afar. His face also seemed to be shrouded in shadows. The 3 of them stood there, silent for a long time, did not speak, the atmosphere indistinctly strange. And above their heads, Ghostly seemed to sense something, glanced at Jean Pinger, coincidentally saw Jean Pinger also looking back at him. Both of them could see the trace of bewilderment in each other's eyes. Yun Ilan looked as if his face was gloomy. Maybe his mood should be like that. If it was anyone else, seeing the foundation that they had managed for so many years turned into such a state, most likely would be in a bad mood. At first glance, his face seemed to be expressionless, but after looking at it for a long time, it actually gave people a vague feeling of ever-changing changes. But if you looked closely, you would find that his expression had never changed. The only thing that changed was his heart. At least, during those days at Chin Yun Hill, the world would not have seen his expression like this. For a long time, Yun Elon's erratic gaze was always on those strange red stone carvings on the Inferno altar, from one end to the other, from one to another, after which, he unhurriedly walked to that small protruding stone platform in the middle of the carvings, stretched out his palm, gently caressed the stone. "How long has it been?" Yun Elon suddenly spoke. His deep voice asked a question without any head or tail. Shangguan-Su was standing beside him, looking at his expression. He did not show any surprise because of Yun Elon's sudden question. Clearly he understood some things, but he did not have the intention to answer, instead strangely turned and glanced at Li Sun, who was standing 3 steps behind them. Chapter 364. Li Sun's head drooped down slightly, his expression respectful, his eyes slightly closed, did not make a sound. Without turning back, but Yun Elon seemed to know everything behind him, indifferently said, "Sun is not an outsider, in the future he will also take over Funxiang Valley, these things should not be hidden from him." Shangguan-Su's body shook slightly and then calmed down, after a moment of silence, said, "Counting from the preparations and the official summoning, it has already been a full 30 days. Red Flame Ming Zun still has not responded." Yun Elon's expression did not change. At most his eyes flashed a few times, but the feeling it gave others seemed to instantly darken. And above the Inferno altar, Ghost Li's heart was moved. It was not that he was shocked that Funxiang Valley was also unable to restore this strange formation, but when Shangguan-Su mentioned the so-called Red Flame Ming Zun, it touched a place deep in his memory, almost subconsciously. He sensed what Shangguan-Su was referring to. Could it be that the wild and blazing beast that was wrapped in flames was the key to the 8 ominous Inferno formation that was said to have a long history and a strange origin? The atmosphere in the Inferno altar was a little strange. Yun Elon's expression did not look good, did not speak, only paced back and forth in the hall, seemed to be thinking about something, and Shangguan-Su only looked at his senior brother's figure, did not speak. As for Li Sun, who was standing beside, seemed to only maintain a humble posture, did not speak. As time passed, Yun Elon's brows slowly frowned, a sharp glint indistinctly in his eyes, as if something was struggling intensely in his mind, but finally, he abruptly stopped, inhaled a long breath, turned and looked at Shangguan-Su and Li Sun behind him. Shangguan-Su glanced at Yun Elon, quietly called out, "Senior brother?" Yun Elon seemed to have made up his mind, without hesitation, coldly said, "Shangguan Junior brother, how important this formation in the Inferno altar is, I do not need to say more. No matter what, it must be restored, if not, we have no other way to deal with him." Shangguan-Su nodded, did not speak, but far away from the 3 of them in the darkness, Ghost Li and Jean Pinger were shocked at the same time. Him? Who was he? The person Funxiang Valley wanted to use this strange formation to deal with, who was it? In the tranquil Inferno altar, what was flowing at this moment seemed to be an invisible dark energy. However, Yun Elon's following words caused the surrounding darkness to turn into a cold and frigid ice. That day when the lava burst forth, the damage to the formation was too great. The spiritual energy that our Funxiang Valley has absorbed for hundreds of years has already been exhausted, plus we also lost the key to the formation Inferno Mirror. That's why we are unable to summon Qi Yanming to activate the formation. If that person hadn't appeared, it wouldn't be a problem. We could just start absorbing from the beginning. But now, we urgently need to use this formation. Yun Elon coldly snorted, 3 deep lines slowly appearing between his eyebrows, killing intent faintly discernible, his voice also growing colder and colder. Shangguan-Su was also frowning deeply, but his face had a trace of surprise, said, "Why, don't tell me senior brother already has another way to work?" Yun Elon's eyes seemed to twitch slightly, said, "This formation in the Inferno altar, was set up by our sect founder according to the records passed down in Funxiang Jade Book, and at the end of the book, there was another founder who recorded down a remark. It was to compare the current situation where we have lost the Inferno Mirror and the Inferno Array cannot be activated, the risky method may work. Shang Guansu and Li Sun behind him were surprised and then overjoyed. Funxiang Jade Book was Funxiang Valley's supreme treasure. All along only Funxiang Valley Master could keep it and study it. Yun Ilan said so. It seemed that after all there was really a brilliant and talented founder who had left behind a wonderful method. Shang Guansu happily said, "Senior brother, what wonderful method was that founder talking about?" Yun Ilan saw their excitement, but there was no joy on his face. On the contrary, his gloominess instead became thicker. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, "That founder wrote at the end of Funxiang Jade Book. The Inferno Array is born from heaven and earth's evil energy, red flame beast savage and violent. The spirit engraved in the array is also the 8 great wastelands' ferocious deities, deducing from the southern border ancient books, using living human blood as sacrifice. Evil energy will flourish and the deities will return, the ferocious beasts will appear and the fire array will be completed." Shang Guansu and Li Sun's countenances changed greatly, looked at each other and for a moment were speechless. After a long while, Shang Guansu then managed to calm down from his bewilderment, said, This is really written by our sect founder?" Yun Ilan snorted, said, "Shangguan Junior brother, don't tell me you suspect that I am using our founder's name to do such evil things?" Shang Guansu's countenance changed again, quickly said, "I dare not, just that this matter of using living human blood as sacrifice is clearly an evil sect's skill. How can it appear in our sect's Jade Book?" Yun Ilan directly interrupted Shang Guansu's words, coldly said, "You are right, although this founder had written these words but no one had ever tried this method." Shang Guansu looked at Yun Ilan's gaze, suddenly felt his entire body turning cold, couldn't help but took a step back. From the corner of his eyes, he saw Li Sun standing behind him, suddenly discovered that his face was also like dirt, unspeakably ugly. "Senior brother, don't tell me you." Shang Guansu seemed to have never spoken with such difficulty. "Don't tell me you intend to use this method?" Yun Ilan raised his brows, without anger but with authority, coldly smiled and said, "If we don't use this method then what can we do? We have worked hard for hundreds of years. The great matter was about to succeed, but so many accidents happened and now even the most important formation is also destroyed. Don't tell me you want me to see all our hard work go down the drain?" Shang Guansu seemed to still be hesitating, argued, "Senior brother, the great matter is naturally more important. This method is really too." Yun Ilan coldly interrupted him, said, "Shangguan Junior brother, you are so persistent, don't tell me in your heart you still have a trace of understanding of the good faction? These many years, for this great cause, the things you have done are also not the good faction, right?" Shang Guansu immediately choked. Yun Ilan's eyes were sharp, as if to pierce into the heart, staring at Shang Guansu, said, "And Shangguan Junior brother, that day this Inferno altar was our sect's important place. It was you who guarded it. Unexpectedly it was in your hands that caused today's disaster. Do you know?" Shang Guansu's body shook greatly, abruptly lifted his head, saw Yun Ilan's cold eyes, like knives staring at him. Shang Guansu looked agitated, his body trembling slightly, seemed to have something to say but for some reason, under Yun Ilan's gaze, he finally slowly shrunk back. After a long while, his face dispirited, quietly said, "I know." Yun Ilan nodded, said, "Since it is so, this matter will still be handled by you, also, sooner." He turned and looked at Li Sun. Li Sun's expression right now was also strange, suddenly hearing his teacher's call. His body actually quivered, quickly said, "Disciple is here." Yun Ilan glanced at him, said, "You follow your Shangguan teacher uncle, learn well, and at the same time help him." Li Sun's face turned pale. For some reason his voice suddenly became hoarse, but he still quietly said, "Yes." Yun Ilan took a last look at the carvings on the ground, frowned, turned without even turning back, walked out. In the creaking sound of the heavy door, only Shangguan Su and Li Sun were left, facing each other woodenly. For a long time, without saying a word, the two of them also slowly walked out. The inferno altar once again descended into silence. In the air, a light sound was heard. 2 figures gently floated down from the top. Xiao Hui called out twice, jumped twice on the ground, and then ran to the side to play. For the first few days, it seemed to be interested in the stone carvings on the ground, but after a few days, it was still like that. The monkey also lost interest. After Ghostly and Jean Pinger landed on the ground and steadied themselves, for a moment both of them did not speak. The surrounding atmosphere was still indistinctly cold, as if that strange aura from Yun Elon had not faded. After a long while, Jean Pinger suddenly said, "Who do you think that they were talking about is?" Ghostly glanced at her, did not answer but asked instead, "What do you think?" Jean Pinger smiled and said, "I am 90% sure they are talking about the beast deity. Just that from what they said, I am not sure if they know the whereabouts of that beast deity." Ghostly silently nodded, said, "And one more point, the 8 Savage Inferno formation is in this Inferno altar. From what they said, they also want to use this formation to deal with the beast deity. Don't tell me they expected that the beast deity would definitely come to this Inferno altar, or this formation can actually be moved?" Jean Pinger frowned slightly. Clearly there were many things that she could not understand. For a moment she was deep in thought. Ghostly's eyes slowly turned, landed on those savage ferocious deities' stone carvings on the ground, after watching for a long while, suddenly sneered and said, "This is the so-called good way, using the blood of living people to offer sacrifices to the evil deities. Heh, even in the evil sect, I have never seen such a thing." Before he could finish, Jean Pinger's clear and melodious laughter was heard, indistinctly with a strange tone, like sneering and also like mockery, and even more, like a trace of hidden fear, said, How do you know in our holy sect there is no such thing?" Ghostly's body shook, turned to look at her. Jean Pinger stood there smiling but had already turned her head away, no longer looking at him. Ghostly frowned, coldly said, "What do you mean by this?" Suddenly, before he could finish the word, think, Ghostly's voice suddenly went hoarse. In that instant, for some reason, he suddenly recalled that day when the great shaman cast the spell to save Baiyao. He requested Ghost King to use blood to carve the formation. And Ghost King, almost in the blink of an eye, took out a sufficient amount of blood. Those basins of blood, where did it come from? Ghostly stood there woodenly, felt his entire body cold, could not speak anymore. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.